15 years ago, a woman of unparalleled beauty claimed the title of Demon King, her overwhelming possessiveness wiping out several great nations. Her skill, called Grand Authority of Charm, could dominate any man, its power transcending race. Even after her death, her control never ceased, as the Demon King's slayers remained under her spell as loyal minions. The world fought back by creating many exceptions and relaxing regulations. Now that the Demon King has finally been defeated, only those exceptions remain. History has already proven to hold the answer to how to handle these exceptions from a time with loosened rules. In the Diamante Kingdom's palace hall, a nobleman angrily declares that all the current staff are fired. He insists the royal palace of a noble kingdom should be staffed only by the most competent nobles carefully selected by the nobility. The nobleman shouts that the World Council has forbidden job discrimination against commoners, but now that the Demon King has been defeated, commoners have no right to be there. He demands they be removed immediately. A young man quietly questions what should be done about the handover, causing the nobleman to react with surprise. The nobleman, standing on a raised platform, angrily asserts his authority as the head of a ducal house, demanding respect and dismissing the concerns of the commoners. A young man quietly points out that if they are told to leave, they will comply, but warns that leaving without any handovers will cause trouble. The nobleman scoffs, dismissing the issue as beneath him and declaring that commoners should handle such matters on their own. He loudly ridicules the idea that commoners could teach nobles anything, calling it absurd. The nobleman commands the staff to gather their belongings and leave immediately, citing the World Council's prohibition against interfering with personal belongings upon dismissal. An older man acknowledges that no handover is necessary, and the young man solemnly agrees, stating they will take their things and leave. The young man bows respectfully, expressing appreciation for everything done, but adds that he is quite busy. The nobleman prepares to leave as well, signaling the end of the confrontation. The young man pushes through the crowd, telling those in his way to move aside. He reflects on how some people fail to understand the importance of a proper handover, criticizing those who believe everything can be solved by simply giving orders. The crowd murmurs around him as he calmly gestures, emphasizing his point. Standing alone amidst scattered belongings and discarded clothes, the young man surveys the chaotic aftermath of the dismissal. He adjusts his collar thoughtfully, contemplating the disorder left behind as the noble staff depart without proper handover. The young man summons an item box with a flick of his finger, causing a swirling vortex to appear. Around him, discarded clothes and boxes scatter across the floor as the aftermath of the dismissal unfolds. He stands calmly amid the chaos, his hand raised as the swirling energy envelopes him. Walking away from the ruined room, he reflects on the end of the Golem operation tests and the loss of special permission to use royal-owned items. Though the control range is limited to 3 meters, he believes sacrificing range for processing speed was the right choice. Holding an identification card, he resolves to handle any future troubles as they come. He decides to search for the best materials to craft a golem, contemplating his next steps while standing near a pile of discarded supplies. Meanwhile, in a grand hall, King Barzile of the Diamante Kingdom sits with his attendants. They discuss the teleportation array now being operational and their imminent departure for a sudden World Council meeting to meet the hero. The king is advised to maintain a good impression, and the scene ends with a sudden, sharp sound echoing through the hall. King Barzile admits he is still not quite used to teleportation, prompting a cheerful attendant to remind him he will need to get used to it. The attendant explains that the World Council still manages the teleportation system, but in time it will belong to their kingdom. The king and his entourage stand before a large round table filled with many delegates. Guards prepare to open a massive door, the sound of its hinges creaking echoing through the hall. A herald announces the arrival of the hero, thanking everyone for their patience. The king raises his hand in greeting as the hero enters, drawing the attention of the crowd. Observers whisper in awe, impressed by the hero's presence and appearance. The crowd reacts with surprise and curiosity as the king's eyes widen in shock and recognition. He swallows nervously, clearly taken aback by the hero's arrival. Back in a quiet village, the hero sits alone at a table, eating a sandwich thoughtfully. He reflects on needing at least 10 years of research to complete his project. Acknowledging a time limit, despite having been fired, he feels relieved to finally pursue what he has always wanted. He decides to try his luck at the rare stone market near the Grand Vein, determined to continue his quest. The hero sighs deeply, lost in thought while sitting at a table in a peaceful spot. A voice breaks his reverie, asking what he's daydreaming about in such calm surroundings. Turning, he spots a cheerful young man leading a horse, greeting him with a casual yo. The young man offers to listen if the hero wants to talk. The hero admits that after finally leaving a harsh, exploitative job, he's still facing tough challenges and time constraints for his goals. The young man reassures him, asking if he's heading to the treasure capital. lapis, and comments that the Dragonstone Kingdom isn't so shady. The hero apologizes for rambling, and the young man smiles, appreciating his self-awareness. The two realize they're traveling to the same destination. The young man guesses the hero is a merchant by his vibe and explains that lapis offers a variety of metals, including rare ones from the Grand or Vein. Noticing the hero inspecting his cart, he asks if the axle is getting old. The young man compliments the hero's keen eyes, revealing he was involved in the technology behind the cart. He then asks if the hero has transportation for the long journey to Lapis. The hero replies he relies on hitched rides in shared carriages. The conversation continues as they prepare to set off together. The blonde young man offers to give the hero a ride to Lapis in exchange for a favor. The hero, Horus, agrees and introduces himself. The blonde, named Gingy, extends his hand for a handshake, but both freeze in surprise as something unexpected happens. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently, and Gingy asks what caused it. The hero sprints away, chased by townsfolk shouting at him. A chained dragon with purple scales appears, breaking free with a fierce roar. The hero watches in disbelief, noting the dragon's scales and the heavy chains restraining it. A flamboyant knight named Urif Chio declares he will handle the dragon, but the hero doubts his chances. The knight charges forward, while the hero observes the chaos and the terrified villagers. The knight's bravado contrasts with the hero's calm skepticism. The hero rushes through a burning village, warned by the townsfolk that it's dangerous. Flames engulf the buildings, and the hero pushes forward despite the danger. Determined to act, the villagers plead for help, especially for a daughter trapped inside the fire. The hero's resolve hardens as he confronts the crisis. The hero calls out urgently through the smoke and flames, desperate for a response from anyone trapped inside. He pushes forward, scanning the burning room with a tense expression, but silence answers him. He strains his ears and eyes, trying to locate someone as the fire crackles around him. He finds a young girl lying unconscious but alive on the floor. His heart races as he checks her condition. Relieved she's not dead but worried about her state, he grips a bottle, preparing to act quickly, and lifts the girl in his arms, questioning if he'll make it out in time. The hero douses the girl with liquid from the bottle, desperately trying to revive her as the fire continues to rage. He holds her close, sweat and soot covering his face, his eyes wide with concern. The girl begins to stir, her breathing shallow but steady, giving him a glimmer of hope. Outside, chaos erupts as a dragon roars and the roof collapses. A knight shouts in alarm, worried for the hero's safety. The hero shields the girl from falling debris, determined to protect her despite the danger. The knight's warning echoes as the hero braces himself, refusing to give up. Horus emerges from the burning ruins, carrying the unconscious girl wrapped in a blanket. He looks back cautiously as the fire crackles around him. A concerned voice calls out, asking if he's okay. Horus gently picks up a small, worn teddy bear from the debris, holding it tightly as a symbol of hope. Outside, a crowd gathers, relieved to see the girl safe but worried about her condition. Horus assures them she's fine, explaining she just fainted from inhaling smoke and will recover with rest. Gratitude pours from the girl's family, while Horus quietly contemplates the strange situation, deciding to avoid questioning the odd circumstances. Nearby, two men discuss the battle against the fallen dragon. They note the mages knocked it down from afar, but the swordsman's strikes don't seem to harm it. One asks Horus for his opinion, and he admits a bad feeling about the fight. The armored dragon roars fiercely as the battle intensifies. The armored swordsman is thrown violently by the dragon's counterattack, crashing to the ground. A shocked onlooker calls out in disbelief. Horus and the others watch grimly as the dragon prepares to strike again. Horus remarks on the disgrace of the situation, while another voice suggests it could be seen as refreshing instead. The girl remains unconscious, wrapped safely in the arms of a woman nearby. Horus, feeling drained, refuses to continue the fight, stating he's not up to it right now. The armored dragon roars and lashes out, throwing the swordsman violently to the ground. The impact echoes as the dragon prepares to strike again. He dodges swiftly, his hair whipping back, and speaks calmly, saying he has nothing personal against the dragon but warns that if others start reusing it, that would be a problem. He braces himself, readying for another attack. The dragon lunges fiercely, jaws wide open, but Horus swings his sword with precision, striking the beast. The clash sends shockwaves through the air as the battle intensifies. Horus throws a smoke bomb, creating a thick cloud that envelopes the area. He holds a small device in his gloved hand, then steps back, confident that the smoke will cover their escape or next move. He quietly admits to himself that this should be enough to cover it up. As the carriage rolls through a wooded path, the young man asks if leaving the gold coins behind was really okay. The other replies it's fine, explaining he took the ingots but carrying that much gold would be too troublesome for him now. He adds that the gold was likely meant to help cover repair costs after the houses burned down. The first man urges him not to be so humble, reminding him of the devastation. The armored man, sitting on the carriage floor, notes it doesn't seem like a single mom situation, suspecting the father is around too. The conversation continues with the armored man acknowledging the hardship of losing a whole house to fire. The young man confirms he doesn't mind the direct route and asks if taking detours would be a problem. Meanwhile, a woman with long hair stands before a large assembly, announcing the leader of the hero community's roster report, Hero Lanhea. The regal king declares that in honor of the hero's achievements in saving the world, they are granted a reward and invites them to ask for whatever they desire. The woman walks through the hall, stating her request. For Master Horus, the man who trained her and the other 5 core executives in the roster report, and who paved the way for the Demon Lord's defeat. She boldly requests the international polygamy privilege, catching the armored man off guard as he looks down, processing her unexpected demand. The woman steps forward before a grand assembly, commanding attention as she addresses King Barzile. He wipes his brow, overwhelmed, asking what kind of man Horus is. She explains Horus is a commoner but also the strongest golem master in the world. She reveals a letter received a week ago stating Horus worked in the royal castle of the Diamante Kingdom, surprising the court. Shock ripples through the crowd as a stout man clenches his fist, incredulous that a commoner worked in the royal castle. He yells that Horus is fired, causing a stir. The woman narrows her eyes, stating plainly that they fired her master. The man protests ignorance, while others react with disbelief. The woman reflects that Horus has always been secretive, and she only learned of his royal castle position through the letter. She explains that the World Council, influenced by the Demon King, passed a provision urging nations to appoint commoners to key posts. However, the Diamante Kingdom did not follow this policy, leaving the man beside the king deflated. The woman asserts that the polygamy privilege is unnecessary given Horus's destination, but civil rights are essential for access. She introduces herself as Princess Lucia of the Dragonstone Kingdom and requests citizenship be granted to Horus and all members of the roster report. The assembly listens intently as she steps forward to make her formal appeal. The woman demands citizenship in the treasure capital Lapis to access the rare stone market under the Dragonstone Kingdom's jurisdiction. She firmly requests this as a reward for defeating the Demon King, startling the king and his court. The woman warns the assembly not to underestimate the hero community. Roster report, who defeated the Demon King with just one group and are all good-looking. She fiercely tells them not to get cocky, provoking tension among the nobles who refuse to hand over such privileges to another nation. The king and courtiers nervously acknowledge the woman as Hero Lanhea. She challenges their understanding, emphasizing her clear demand for preferential access to rare minerals. The king pleads for clarification, realizing her intent is tied to Horus, the Golem Master. The king boasts the Diamante Kingdom as the greatest nation, claiming Horus should have special rights to rare minerals. The woman counters, stating the kingdom's greatness is only nominal and reminds him that the people gathered are evacuees from the Demon King's invasion. She questions if he is wrong, pressing the truth behind the kingdom's claim. The reason so many civilians were supported was the power of Horus as a golem master. He created staff golems capable of handling over 10 times a normal person's workload and can control over 500 at once. The king reacts in disbelief. The woman explains how powerful her master is but questions why he would stay in a place facing financial hardship after firing all those staff members. The woman reveals that with the Demon King defeated, the special provisions enforced across nations are rapidly losing power. One such provision involved loans, forcing many moneylenders to accept extensions on repayment periods or restrictions on interest rates. Some lenders even had to provide one-sided financial support. The king grimaces as the woman asks if he thinks he can crush this problem with power, while she turns away. The woman asks if there are any rumors of dissatisfaction from the nation's lenders. She explains that the hero community prepared nearly the full repayment amount in gold coins and purchased the debt bonds themselves. The king and his court listen tensely as she reveals that the Diamante Kingdom holds the most debt by nation. The king is shocked to learn that the head of the Lugisak ducal house has the largest debt of all, and even selling his royal estate wouldn't cover it. The woman states that repayments are done in installments with extremely low interest rates. The king is startled as a man suddenly falls from the gallery. The woman commands that the debt be paid back slowly. The king reacts with shock as he learns only the Dragonstone Kingdom is actually repaying its debt. A woman reveals the dragon silver sword. Talagartha, the very sword used to defeat the Demon King, was made in Dragonstone. She explains that the reward for granting her and her master citizenship in Dragonstone and the treasure capital Lapis is significant. The king trembles as she asks if this arrangement has been approved. A small figure nervously acknowledges the Dragonstone Kingdom's recognition of their nationalities and citizenship in Lapis. The woman thanks the court and announces their departure. but her expression darkens as she warns that if anything happens to Princess Lucia, the consequences will be dire. She reminds them that they understand the gravity of this. The court coughs uneasily, sensing the threat. The scene shifts to the bustling Dragonstone kingdom. Treasure capital Lapis. A woman exhales deeply, lost in thought. Nearby, a man named Horace notices and calls out to her, asking if she is all right. She looks up, startled, as he approaches. The woman suddenly embraces Horace tightly, joyfully exclaiming that he is truly the real master. Horace is taken aback by her enthusiasm and remarks that she is acting very differently than usual. She insists it's because he is special. Horace asks her to wait a moment, explaining he still has paperwork to finish, as they stand together amid the crowd. The woman proudly holds up the nationality and citizenship papers, declaring there's no need for further proof since they've already secured them for their master. The man, surprised by her speed, is grabbed by the arm as she insists they go now. When he asks where, she replies they're heading to their mansion, prompting a confused reaction from a nearby man. She explains she secured the mansion through a Ruster report and eagerly suggests they live together, dragging the man along despite his protests about her age. They arrive at a huge house, which she calls their love nest. The man winces, overwhelmed by its size. A maid greets them warmly, welcoming them back and addressing the man as master. The man and woman exchange greetings with the maid, Tiris, who smiles gently. Inside, the maid offers to give them a tour. She expresses her long-awaited joy at finally living under one roof with the master and Lanhea. The man acknowledges this, and the maid notes that for now only Lanhea and the master live there, with no sign of others around. She shows them a room prepared specifically for the master to create golems. The man reflects on how the setup will allow him to fully focus on his research. The man marvels at how well-equipped the place is, filled with all kinds of metals. He thanks the maid for her help, saying this is the least he can do in return. The maid smiles as the man notes that normally it would take at least 4 years to obtain citizenship or national status, but with everything already arranged, he can get ahead on many things. The man thanks the two maids with a warm smile, gently patting their heads. He admires the rare metals around him, wondering just how much they all cost. The woman with long hair brushes off the question, calling it just pocket change. The man accepts this lightly, deciding to leave it at that. Outside, the woman with long hair stands before a large, stately mansion. She gestures forward confidently, declaring it's time to see the true strength of the hero's master. Idrika, a court alchemist of the Chaos Stone Dragonstone Kingdom, struggles with the vast size of the hero's mansion. Exhausted from walking since the gate, her companion urges her not to be discouraged, reminding her she is here under an official request from Lady Lucia. The companion warns that the real nervous one should be the so-called mentor of the hero. Inside a grand office, Lady Lucia is asked what the official request entails. She explains it is an investigation. Idrika questions why she must conduct it, while Lady Lucia confirms the kingdom has agreed to grant national citizenship to all members of the hero's community. However, they need to evaluate them properly, raising concerns about whether they can truly be trusted. Idrika is surprised to learn she must investigate all members. The companion clarifies that only the one who raised the hero, Horace, needs investigation. Idrika wonders why, and the companion explains that the hero's boss is also a golem master and that Idrika can evaluate him from a technical perspective. Since the hero holds Horace in high regard, he might be a person of great virtue and character. Idrika resolves to see for herself if the hero's abilities are genuine or a bluff. In a well-furnished room, the man known as Horace is told he must demonstrate his abilities in the magic power room underground. He asks if this is an official government request, and the woman confirms it. Another woman, Lucia, invites Lanhea to join the observation. Horace agrees, while Idrika looks on with a serious expression, ready to begin the evaluation. The group approaches the palace basement, discussing its significance. The man explains it likely holds the power source for the mana pipes, which supply mana from an external source to stationary magic tools at home. He demonstrates how loading a monster coin into a core component converts it into energy, making daily life more convenient. The woman confirms she maintains the system, and the man acknowledges her expertise as a golem master. She insists on assessing his skills while they are there, warning that a bare minimum explanation won't suffice and that her eyes won't be deceived. The man smiles, teasing the woman about her strictness. While she declares she will be the one to judge him, she warns him not to mess up as she agrees to show him around. They enter the magic power supply room, where a large main unit dominates the space. The woman instructs him to get the unit running, revealing she has set up similar ones in another kingdom. They discuss how the magic supply has stopped, but magic still flows through the mansion due to recent renovations. The man reacts with surprise as the woman pushes him forward, determined to see the task done. The scene continues. The scene continues. The scene continues. The man reacts with surprise as he swiftly blocks an incoming strike with his hands. His expression sharp and focused. The force of the attack is evident as he braces himself, eyes wide with alertness. The woman lunges forward with fierce determination, her face strained in effort as she swings a weapon at him. He grits his teeth, barely managing to block the blow, the impact rattling him. The man presses his hands against a wooden surface, and the woman gasps in shock as the area he touched instantly turns much whiter, even brighter than the part she had previously repaired. Nearby, others watch in disbelief, one exclaiming that the change is unbelievable while the man laughs heartily. The man calmly instructs the woman to try the technique herself, assuring her he will guide her through it. She looks astonished, admitting she's never seen such a clean result before. He explains that magic naturally seeks stability, and that it's not about forcing a shape, but allowing it to take the form it wants. She nods determinedly, ready to learn. The woman commands the surface to turn white, urging it with all her might, but the result confuses her as water drips down and she protests the absurdity. The man encourages her, saying her first attempt isn't bad, while another girl excitedly notes the surface looks even whiter than before. The man explains the power of a hero's master, prompting jealousy from the girl who vows to watch closely and steal the technique. Annoyed by his smug attitude, he admits it took years to restore the surface to gray, surprising the others. A noblewoman calls out to the girl, asking how her practice went. Inside a library, the girl sleeps on a pile of papers, drawing concern from onlookers. Lady Lucia is informed that the girl suddenly said she needed to make preparations. The noblewoman reflects that the girl has somehow improved greatly, though she's been putting in little effort lately. Others apologize for delays due to maintenance, and the girl wonders if the hero's master's arrival inspired the sudden change. The scene ends with the library door closing quietly. The girl sleeps with a peaceful expression, her hair gently stroked, as another character remarks it might be the most serene sleeping face they've seen in years. She must have witnessed something truly incredible. Suddenly, the girl awakens with a triumphant shout, claiming victory and asking if Horus saw it. The other character watches her quietly, smiling softly. Meanwhile, in the underground magic chamber, a group of people react in shock and confusion to an unexpected event, shouting in disbelief as something extraordinary unfolds before them. A carriage pulled by two horses races forward at incredible speed. A young woman with horns gasps in awe, exclaiming how amazing it is. Nearby, a girl sitting on the grass points out the carriage with the blue flag is incredibly fast. A knight confirms it uses bearings made by Horus, carrying 30% more cargo as well. The group discusses how these carriage bearings significantly reduce the cost of transporting metal from the treasure capital Lapis's dungeon. The girl explains that no matter how much one improves the bearings, there is always a limit. The man with dark hair praises the achievement, noting enhancing transport capabilities is tied to national power. He reflects that this was the minimum needed for success. The horned girl and the other woman look surprised as he explains the Diamante Kingdom needed to transport enough supplies for many people to survive. The man continues, saying even efficient office work can't move large amounts of supplies, a fact the others acknowledge. The horned girl recalls the hero mentioning this at the World Conference. The woman adds that the kingdom operated hundreds of worker golems to handle palace tasks, surprising the girl who spits out her drink. The man explains that to transport food, they developed better carriages and provided high-quality farming tools. Despite many refugees, only a limited number could work immediately. The man and the others watch as the blue-flagged carriage speeds ahead, while another carriage falls behind the red-flagged one. The woman asks if there might be trouble, but the man dismisses it. He explains the new bearings almost completely eliminate friction, so the carriage faces less resistance. Even though the carriage is heavier, it should feel much lighter to the horses, allowing faster and more efficient transport. The man insists it's just a matter of getting used to the new technology, noting even the horses seem surprised by it. He urges to let the horses run a lot, promising to ensure it. Nearby, two workers express disbelief at the speed of producing the new bearings, saying it makes no sense. The woman beside the man asks what's going on inside his head, as he explains he's studied a broad range of things. He describes a golem master as someone skilled in a blend of earth magic, magical tool creation, and alchemy. The woman asks how he learned all this, and he replies he reads various books, even unrelated ones, hoping they might connect someday. The maid comments mastering even one of those fields is hard, but he points out that knowing the necessary elements from the start would make it easier. The girl questions if that wastes time, but he explains the technique was created by combining different elements. The woman insists new technology always combines various knowledge, but the maid worries about wasted time. The man retorts that complaining about wasted time is just poor planning. The woman reminds him that the fridge is always full when he returns from shopping, teasing him. He tells her not to bring that up, But the princess encourages him to be himself. He hesitates, admitting it might be easier that way. The man reflects on how the elitist mindset is rare in this country, surprised by cultural differences he saw studying technology abroad. He explains nobles and commoners attend the same classes here, regardless of grades, which is unusual. The woman agrees, noting that nobles understand the hardships of poor families as knowledge. The man contrasts this with other countries, where nobles and commoners are separated. An older man laughs at the idea of commoners, while the man acknowledges it's different elsewhere. The man explains that when noble children grow up surrounded only by other nobles, extravagant meals become the norm, but if a child from a poor family sits among them, they witness others surviving on cheap school lunches. He reflects that this difference shapes national character. The group listens thoughtfully as he acknowledges the truth in this observation. The maid interrupts, asking about the technology Horus uses, wondering if it's outdated. The man confirms it's probably old but admires the inventor as both an adventurer and golem master. The maid awaits his explanation with curiosity. He reveals a well-preserved autobiography written 100 years ago by the man he admires. The book contains records of his adventures and the many inventions he created as a golem master. The maid is amazed, calling it a book of adventures. The maid excitedly asks if the book is the person Horus admires. The man raises the book high, joking about its stinginess when the maid tries to grab it. He warns it would be a huge problem if the book got torn. Then he reveals there are ciphers hidden within its pages, surprising the maid and the other girl. He explains that decoding the ciphers reveals this world was usurped and plundered by 5 individuals 2,000 years ago. The girls ask what usurped means and about the 5 individuals. He adds that defeating them requires the power of a golem master. The maid reacts with disbelief, questioning if that explains Horus's exceptional skills as a golem master. He confirms it and smiles, saying he's said enough and hopes they understand. The girl wonders aloud if those 5 who usurped the world really lived 2,000 years ago, and he notes they've lived quite a long time. He decides it's time to head back. Despite being in the middle of the conversation, the girl is surprised, but he tells her to find something to admire if she wants to become even more amazing. She looks inspired as he encourages her to see the world's history of people challenging all kinds of things and decide for herself. He reflects that magic power can become anything, but ultimately it all depends on the individual. The maid clenches her fist with determination, affirming she understands. The woman with twin buns promises to look into the carriage bearings if she has time, and the other woman eagerly encourages her to do so. The man with dark hair smirks quietly as the 2 women bicker, telling them to shut up. A final message from him says to come anytime if there are any issues with the carriage bearings, and the 2 women respond enthusiastically that they understand. The narration introduces the Kinsekai Great Vein, a massive dungeon located at the capital of Chaoston Dragonstone Kingdom, the treasure capital Lapis. It explains that defeating monsters inside yields high-quality metals as drop items. Inside the dungeon, 2 armored men stand near a seated figure in a hooded cloak, hinting at the dungeon's dangerous and mysterious nature. Inside a crowded hall, a man named Godal of the Immediate Count family from the Diamante Kingdom complains about the noise as adventurers chatter excitedly about Godal's holy sword, Guard Might. The crowd demands to see the sword, and Godal laughs heartily, amused by their eagerness. The crowd discusses how rare it is to see a holy sword and speculates that hero Lanhea has entered the dungeon, calling it possibly the biggest haul in history. 2 men talk about how Lanhea is training with her mentor, not for profit. Suddenly, one man grabs another by the collar in surprise as the chatter continues about the hero and her mentor. A man from the Immediate Count family grabs a young adventurer by the collar, angrily demanding how he dares speak of a commoner hero. The adventurer struggles, asking who the man is and demanding to be let go. The nobleman sneers, mocking the adventurer's audacity. Nearby, guards and onlookers search for the hero. While the nobleman promises to show something impressive, the adventurer is forcefully dragged away as the crowd looks on. Outside, 2 men watch from above, one asking if the event has started, and the other replies not yet. The hero stands alone in the courtyard, having just picked up a wooden sword. A woman apologizes for the crowd gathering, but the hero says it's fine since he allowed them to watch. The nobleman warns that the Demon King's power means the fight is over if the hero catches his eye, and the crowd agrees. The woman notes surprise at the hero's openness, expecting secrecy. The hero and the woman exchange determined looks as she declares her readiness to begin. The hero stands tall with his wooden sword, drawing the attention of the crowd. The woman steps forward, and the crowd watches intently as she prepares to engage. The nobleman mocks the hero's mentor, calling him weak and questioning the hero's title. The woman tells the hero not to worry about the nobleman and urges him to continue. The nobleman and his followers are told to leave by the crowd, who have come to watch the hero's training. The hero stands firm, surrounded by the watching crowd, ready to prove himself. Godal angrily dismisses the crowd's belief that a commoner could defeat the Demon King, calling it absurd. The hero and a woman exchange a sharp glance. Sensing the tension, Godal declares himself the eldest son of the Amodiad family and bearer of the Holy Sword, vowing to expose the hero's disguise. The hero casually blocks Godal's attack, who is surprised by the skill. The woman remarks on Godal's principles, which the hero doesn't understand. She explains Godal believes commoners stole the chance to defeat the Demon King, and he is throwing a tantrum over it. Godal is called whiny and told to stop his nonsense. Godal lashes out, insulting the hero as a weak man training a mere commoner. He accuses the hero of spreading rumors that the Demon King was defeated, suggesting the princess either fled or the Demon King is hiding. Godal demands the hero engrave the Holy Sword's power into his body. The hero sharply orders Godal to move, then forcefully strikes him, sending him flying into a wall. The crowd gasps as Godal crashes hard, stunned by the hero's strength. The hero explains that magic power always seeks stability. Two men urgently call out to Godal, who suddenly collapses, struggling to understand what just happened. The hero reveals that, by focusing his magic power into his eyes and glaring, he created a massive pressure that slammed into Godal, forcing the magic in the air to distance itself from him. The hero and the woman walk away as the crowd reacts in awe, acknowledging that the hero's mentor is no ordinary man. The woman explains that for someone like the hero, a simple glare is enough to defeat an opponent, no sword or magic needed. She notes that when intimidation intensifies, a color matching the person appears, but just now it was completely transparent. The hero recalls how Tyrus once said he had eyes like cannons, and the woman praises him as expected. The woman prepares to attack again, declaring this time will be different. The hero calmly slaps his sword's blade. Readying himself, the woman grimaces, bracing for the next move. The hero challenges her, saying if she can't get close with just that, there's no point in making her stronger. The woman charges fiercely, shouting she's coming, swinging her sword in a powerful strike. The woman remarks the hero is surprisingly light, recalling she mentioned this in a letter. The hero, gripping his sword, states that although the Demon King with the power of male domination is gone, many battles remain. He warns the woman she's gotten rusty. She smirks, teasing if he's become too strong, far beyond 100 times his previous strength. The hero apologizes quietly. The woman charges fiercely, sword drawn, while the hero stands ready, inviting her to attack as much as she wants since they have plenty of time. Both exchange determined looks. She acknowledges his strength still far surpasses hers, but she's ready to fight. The woman, with a confident smile, declares that someday she will stand by the hero's side and beyond that, signaling her resolve to support him no matter what challenges lie ahead. A man scolds his son harshly, calling him a fool and questioning what he was thinking. The son, sitting with his head down and a sword beside him, asks what he means. The father reminds him that he himself said the commoners spreading lies about defeating the Demon King were causing trouble. He warns that this doesn't justify picking a fight with them, revealing their Amodiad Count family owes 20,000 gold coins to Luster Report. The son reacts in shock. The son angrily points out that 20,000 gold coins is 100 times the annual budget of their family. The father explains that even though the Demon King is defeated, they still must repay the debt. He adds they have already received over 100,000 gold coins in aid, but still owe this debt. The son slams the table in frustration. The father insists they must make the commoners admit they didn't defeat the Demon King. He shouts that the World Conference recognized the Demon King's defeat and challenges if they can deny that to the entire world. The father angrily explains they were supposed to negotiate a lower interest rate, but the son's reckless actions ruined it. The son leans on the window, distressed. The father reminds him that even the Holy Sword costs a massive fee to the Shinichika Church. He states the annual budget from the royal family is only 200 gold coins, and even 1% interest per year barely covers it. The father adds the Shinichika Church also has massive debts with Luster Report, squeezing money out of various countries. The son covers his face, overwhelmed. The father declares that the world is maintained by the gold coins supplied by Luster Report. He accuses the son of picking a fight with the hero community's leader. The son screams in frustration and abruptly stands, grabbing his sword. The father calls out, asking where he is going and telling him to wait. The hero walks through a dense forest path, carrying a sack over his shoulder, silently contemplating. He considers going deeper into the dungeon next time. Suddenly, a sword is drawn against him with a command not to move. The voice orders him to erase the debt owed by the Amodiad Count family and to have his disciple carry out the task. The hero calmly acknowledges the ambush, noting the effort it took since a head-on attack wouldn't work. He identifies the attacker as Godal by the aura of the holy sword. Godal, shocked, asks how the hero knows. The hero prepares for confrontation as Godal angrily declares they should get straight to it. Godal lunges forward with his sword, but the hero remains unfazed, blocking the attack with ease. The hero asserts he is not a threat and commands Godal Imodiad, eldest son of the largest nation's count family, to obey his order. The hero reflects that telling others about the debt might cause them to burn the contract, but insists the debt was earned by defeating powerful monsters on the journey to slay the Demon King. Erasing the debt would deny their accomplishments. Godal angrily rejects this, shouting that a commoner must obey a noble's orders, regardless. The hero explains that even though the group now calls themselves the Hero Community, they were originally just the Adventurer Community. If those adventurers had died on their journey, they wouldn't owe any money. The man angrily retorts that it's not his fault. If anything, it's their fault for surviving. Suddenly, the man is shocked when the hero commands him to stop, leaving him confused and panicked about who is supposed to give orders. The man notices his body reacting strangely and questions it. The hero explains that magic power seeks stability and that the human body stores magic in a different dimension. The holy sword floods the body with magic power, allowing the hero to paralyze him simply by intimidating him and commanding obedience. The man trembles, realizing he cannot resist. The hero warns the man that for fools who don't listen, the only cure is a good punch, reminding him that pain hurts. The man desperately pleads for the hero to stop, but the hero raises his armored fist, telling him to just take it without resisting. The hero delivers a powerful punch that sends the man flying backward through the air. Screaming in pain as the impact lands, the man crashes to the ground, clearly overwhelmed by the hero's strength and control. The woman alerts the hero that she senses the holy sword's presence outside. The hero watches the sword embedded in the ground, acknowledging the Golem punch iron fist punishment he just delivered. The maid cheerfully insists it wasn't a big deal, even if he left the man alone. The hero reflects on how his body modifications make even a normal punch feel like being hit by a golem, explaining that some people only learn when punched, or the problem repeats. The woman hesitantly mentions that Godal said many things to the hero, but he shrugs it off, saying he wouldn't get worked up over such nonsense. He explains that running things solo in the capital means dealing with hundreds of requests and complaints daily. The maid notes that commoners usually don't complain because only nobles are supposed to work in the castle, but due to the Demon King exception, commoners started working as staff. The woman adds that since problem solvers are now also commoners, it's easier for them to speak up. The hero admits he understands the frustration of people accusing them of living off taxes, but stresses the importance of not being swayed by extremists spreading radical ideas. The maid sympathizes, noting the hero must have had a hard time. Suddenly, a cheerful greeting interrupts them as a group of commoners approaches, carrying baskets and smiling warmly. The maid offers a basket of fruits and sweets as a thank you gift, explaining that the hero had mentioned maintaining the magic chamber's power unit. She happily notes that the efficiency of magic power supply to the city improved after maintenance, reducing the monster coins used for magical tools to only 20 to 30% of previous levels. The hero listens attentively as the woman and maid share the gifts, appreciating the support from the people. The palace officially announced a significant tax rate reduction, explaining how it was possible. The woman wonders if the people are thinking of saving the extra money, noting they seem to be saving up as well. The maid adds that the Dragonstone Kingdom maintains high transparency with its national budget, making it easy to understand. Nearby, a child asks their mother what the news means, but the woman warns it's something good kids shouldn't look at. The hero appears distracted, carrying a sack, while the woman remarks that he doesn't seem very happy. He admits he's cooperating with the country for his own goals. The maid reflects that despite his long service at the capital's castle, he was never praised or thanked, perhaps because standing out too much would have made him a target of the Demon King. The woman asks if he no longer even expects gratitude. The maid agrees, acknowledging it's a harsh story they shouldn't say much about. Inside the Diamante Kingdom Royal Castle office, an older man named Horace is overwhelmed by reports. A knight interrupts with urgent news about damaged bearings on carriages used for food transport, with no replacement parts available. Another official reports that stationary magical devices in the capital are malfunctioning. Seeking guidance, Horace sighs, lamenting the town's decline and the inability to secure proper paper for reports. The narration explains that the city's convenient life depends on stationary magical devices, which only function if the magic power supply station is properly maintained. Since Horace, who performed maintenance, left, things have deteriorated. Most noble-born alchemists tasked with maintenance are better at rhetoric than actual skills. There are too few people capable of doing their jobs properly, no spare parts for bearings, and no operation manuals remain. As a golem master, Horace likely had a magical tool for dimensional storage. But the situation has become dire. The king reflects that the kingdom's prosperity was only possible because of Horus. A knight reports that commoners in the public access space are growing frustrated with unresolved issues, warning it could lead to a riot. The king explains that magical tools perform the same regardless of the user, but golems do not. Their effectiveness depends on the operator. He orders that commoners should solve their own problems. The knight nervously admits they lack enough manpower, but the king retorts, sharply, asking if they would prefer to work 10 times harder like a golem. The knight quickly apologizes. The king wipes his brow, stressing the importance of smooth food deliveries to maintain the nation's status as the world's largest. A breathless messenger bursts in, reporting that Godal Amodiad, eldest son of the Amodiad Count family, has made contact with the hero's mentor. The king reacts with suspicion, wondering if Godal is trying to make an enemy of the hero's mentor. The messenger explains Godal was knocked out on the spot after being ordered to erase a debt. The king, exhausted, asks what the hero's side said. An official reports there are no demands for now but reveals the Amodiad Count family's debt totals 20,000 gold coins. The king laments that just paying the 1% interest of 200 coins would wipe out their entire annual noble budget. He recalls the Count family was given their title because of the Holy Sword, but their land had no significant industry. The king orders to prepare 20,000 gold coins to pay off the debt from the treasury. The king commands to strip the Amodiad Count family of their assets, leaving them with the bare minimum, confiscating the rest for the royal family, and exiling them to the frontier. An official reacts in shock. The king admits he owes Godal a great debt, recalling how during the labyrinth outbreak 12 years ago, he put Godal through much hardship. He vows not to let anyone get carried away anymore. The official agrees to settle it immediately, acknowledging that without Godal's efforts, the king would have lost his position as crown prince due to a massive blunder. The king reviews a receipt confirming the 20,000 gold coins were delivered to the hero community, but the document gives him a stomachache. Suddenly, a breathless messenger urgently calls for the king. The king demands to know what is happening as a massive door slams open, and he shouts in shock, questioning what on earth is going on. The king learns the son of the Count family has been insulting hero community facilities and causing assaults, threatening the country's stability. Despite the chaos, the incident ended with the son being punched. The king is told the debt repayment and exile of the Count family head and heir supposedly settled the matter, leaving him doubtful. The king is informed that the Count families had proud children who co-signed the debts, but commoners provoked these sons into causing trouble. The king reacts angrily to the arrogance of the commoners who think heroes are more important. The plan to solve the debt by collapsing a few Count families gains support, with the king repaying debts and apologizing to settle things, while the exiled families are shown. The king slams his fist in frustration, accusing others of making a fool of him and demanding an investigation. A subordinate admits they already looked into it, revealing a study session led by the duke's family after the king drafted the document to prepare the 20,000 gold coins. The king, shocked by their foolishness, grabs the subordinate by the collar and orders him to speak, while a group gathers around a table discussing the scheme. The king reflects bitterly that fools only see the surface of things. He admits the Amodiad Count family incident was resolved because the hero's mentor let it slide. A special favor owed to Godal. A subordinate nervously asks the total debt amount, and the king reveals it to be an astronomical 1 billion gold coins. The king laments how their entire nation's yearly budget is only 10 million gold coins, making the repayment of 100 times that impossible. He pounds the table in frustration, declaring the royal family must pay and he must bow his head to resolve this. His anguished roar echoes through the room. Meanwhile, a maid pours tea as she and another woman discuss the chaos. They question the sanity behind simultaneous attacks on hero community facilities and doubt the Diamante Kingdom's intelligence. They acknowledge the kingdom promised to repay 20,000 gold coins but suspect their perspective is narrow. A newspaper headline questions if the kingdom is turning against the hero community, noting widespread outrage. The maid suggests settling the massive debt by taking something the kingdom has that they want. She estimates 1 billion gold coins would be needed to pay off the problem in one go. Doubting the kingdom can afford it, the other woman agrees and proposes acquiring usable metals for golems, pondering how to proceed with the settlement. In the capital city of Diamante Kingdom, a confident woman suggests they seize the antenna. A maid confirms such a device exists in the capital, explaining that while the master's golem control range is normally limited to 3 meters, the antenna allowed him to manage the entire city alone. The maid continues that building the antenna in the capital is difficult due to material and technological demands. The woman notes the master isn't currently attempting to create large golems. They exchange a knowing smile, then eagerly agree to take the antenna, their enthusiasm clear as they prepare to act. The king, deep in thought, declares this moment a major turning point. A servant approaches and addresses him respectfully. A young man, standing firm, admits he does not want to accept the demand placed upon them. The king questions the young man, Reiser, who confirms he has read the terms. Reiser explains that handing over the antenna to the hero community promises huge benefits regarding their debt. The king laments that even paying their entire national budget for a year wouldn't cover the interest, and the kingdom can barely afford 1% of it. He wonders why they shouldn't seize the opportunity. Reiser speculates that the hero's master sacrificed his control range for enhanced capabilities. The king urges him to continue. Reiser explains that if they hand over the antenna now and the hero's master returns someday, the situation would be different. The king agrees thoughtfully. Reiser cites ancient records, and the king acknowledges them. The king suggests the master likely used the antenna as a relay to compensate for his limited range. Reiser agrees, noting this is probably why the master remains active in their country. The king admits part of him hoped they could invite the master back to the castle. Reiser adds there are records of the master working in the country for many years. The young man asks if the nobles read the letter too. Pressing for the exact message, the king, holding the letter, sighs in frustration, calling the nobles unimaginative. He quotes their dismissive words, mocking the idea that handing over useless trash keeps the country safe, labeling commoners as easy-to-handle fools. The young man reflects on his father's advice that rulers must trust only what they see and gather accurate reports from subordinates. The king clenches his fist, admitting he now fully understands those words, which he once dismissed as idealism. Resolute, he declares acceptance of the hero's demand and orders preparation to hand over the antenna. The king announces his final decision to give up the possibility of the hero's master returning. Though he refuses to guarantee peace for the nobles, he commands a full list of suitable dungeons to imprison all of them. The young man bows in understanding, silently accepting the heavy responsibility. The young man recalls how just days ago, the king surrounded himself with flatterers, laughing foolishly. He thinks the king is the type who succeeds by trying hard. As the king walks away, the young man wonders if the hero's master is angry because they failed to properly value his work. The young man explains that the eldest son of the count, despite drawing his holy sword, was satisfied after only punching once and likely doesn't care about them. The older man agrees. Understanding this, the young man asks if he still has regrets. But the older man denies it. The young man notes he has seen commoners complain before, and the older man admits it would only be a matter of time before the young man gets sick of such troubles. The king summarizes that if they apologize and promise to maintain proper distance as a ruler, their relationship won't worsen. He sighs, realizing they have no choice but to give up on Horus. The young man questions how Horus could be contained by the kingdom, concluding it was impossible from the start. The king reflects that Horus acted cool until halfway earlier but now worries like a maiden in love. The young man asks about sending a bonus from the underground vault, but the king dismisses it and tells him he may go. The older man regrets not properly rewarding Horus for his efforts as royalty. He insists they are just returning things to how they should be and cannot respond even if Horus says he's done with them. He hopes that if this leads to the country's growth, they can eventually repay everything. The older man contemplates how the outcome of the bonus will affect things. Meanwhile, the young man stands alert in a cavernous dungeon. Sensing something, his expression sharpens as he braces himself, preparing for an imminent threat or challenge. The young man stands alert in a jagged cavern as a metallic bird swoops down toward him. His eyes narrow sharply, and he exhales a burst of flame, preparing for the encounter. The metallic bird screeches as it maneuvers swiftly, but the young man notes that his aura no longer grants him a significant advantage. He observes that the bird, made of metal, can only fly using magic, making it vulnerable to overpowering magic. Despite this, he senses the challenge of this untrodden territory. The bird emits a piercing cry as it attacks, but the young man calmly breathes fire at it. Realizing his flames aren't entirely ineffective, the bird's metallic form glints as it dodges, and the young man assesses the situation with steady focus. Deciding to change tactics, he summons a gun-type golem, readying it with a determined expression. As the golem fires, the young man aims carefully, preparing to test this new weapon against the flying metallic foe. The metallic bird screeches as it dives sharply, but a powerful strike shatters its wing with a sharp crack. The bird cries out in pain, fragments breaking off as it plummets toward the cavern floor. Standing on a rocky ledge, the young man watches as the shattered mechanical wings fall rapidly, the sound of their impact echoing through the cavern. Holding a small glowing crystal between his fingers, the young man notes the enemy was weaker than expected. He gestures, and a bag brimming with treasure appears. With a swing of his arm, he scatters the coins and gems across the floor, then hoists the heavy sack onto his shoulder. He decides it's time to return. Back at their base, the young man sorts through the gathered ores, discarding some and keeping others. A woman with long hair approaches, commenting on his presence in the warehouse and his habit of working immediately after returning from the dungeon. The maid, serving tea nearby, remarks that he should be resting. He explains he's organizing what he needs and what he doesn't. The young man explains that with a skilled appraisal, one can distinguish the quality of ores even if they look identical. The maid reacts with surprise. He continues, noting that deeper dungeon layers yield rare ores useful for enhancing others. The maid wonders if junk was mixed in, but he confidently says he can adjust them with alchemy if needed. The young man laments the low drop rates and the hassle of venturing deeper into the dungeon. A woman asks if refining the ore with alchemy is beyond his skill. He admits he doesn't specialize in metal manipulating alchemy, explaining that a golem master balances earth magic, alchemy, and magic tool creation. He reaches for a cup of tea. He decides to leave the rest of the sorting to Tyrus and the others. She asks if he wants the bonus metal, prompting him to question what it is. Outside, they discuss the Diamante Kingdom sending the antenna, having agreed after negotiating debt reduction. The young man reveals he no longer plans to manage the country. The woman explains the bonus is part of the package and was delivered first. She notes no average item can extend the control range of someone at his level. Hoping that extending his range will allow better golems, they relax, acknowledging the convenience of the bonus. The woman wonders why the antenna wasn't used in the capital. He explains the kingdom's magic didn't meet the antenna's standards, so they couldn't create fitting magic. The maid questions if the antenna was made by the kingdom, learning it was crafted by Zetsia Oration, a legendary creator of super ancient magic tools. The young man reflects that fate led the kingdom to acquire it. The young man and the woman discuss the bonus item, with her calling it a waste that people make a big deal out of it. She reveals it was stored in the castle's underground vault. Surprising him, he admits he's always wanted to open it, and the maid encourages him to do so. The woman asks how about opening it, while he suspects the item was sent without the sender knowing its true nature. The maid questions if the item is something he doesn't need, but he firmly says no, explaining that this single item advances his research by 10 years. Their shocked reactions follow as he holds the item, noting how amazing it is what people don't know. He reflects that from his perspective, trying to obtain it would have been completely dependent on luck. He explains he has no other research route and tried to avoid using the item. The woman asks if it's that amazing, and he says King Barzile probably sent it without knowing the consequences, calling it the perfect gift. He recalls being told to continue working in the castle and keep the hero in the kingdom after the Demon King was defeated, and that he would have kept agreeing repeatedly. The maid asks if there's a chance he'll work at the castle again, but he refuses, saying his opinion of the kingdom's people hasn't changed. He explains that if stationed at the castle, he couldn't reach the Grand or Vein of Kinsakai, and he would have left the castle anyway. The woman asks if he wants to write off the Diamante Kingdom's debt now, and he agrees, noting the nobles are already over their heads now that the debt is gone. She insists they must make sure everyone remembers the true weight of the title hero. He questions if she plans to provoke some idiots using the no more debt news as bait and examples. She admits learning such tactics from him. He concedes with a smile. The next day, the king rereads the same letter 5 times, stunned by the declaration that the kingdom's debt is erased. Outside a gated estate, 2 figures note that another hero lady visited today, rumored to have finished cleaning up after the demon lord's defeat. Nearby, a boy peers through a spyglass, causing a guard and woman to shout at him to stop and get out. The boy is startled when someone asks what he's doing. 2 women approve something as a knight cheers nearby. A carriage arrives amid a bustling crowd. A lecherous man holding a spyglass grins slyly, declaring he will make all the heroes his mistresses, smooching the lens with a heart-shaped sound effect. The woman notes none of the nobles have gotten carried away yet, while the man reads a newspaper with a tired expression. Another woman warns that if they had, it would be too fast, calling out to Lanhea. A hand reaches in to inform them a person from the Diamante Kingdom's ducal house is outside, and the man quotes, "I'm going to make you all my mistresses, so come with me." Startling the group suddenly, a loud voice booms, demanding why they are making him wait, declaring it too slow. The man remarks that was fast, as the woman leans on him. A large, imposing man announces himself as Ashton Recotonides, head of the Diamante Kingdom's Recotonides ducal family. Demanding recognition, the man and woman respond that it's the first they've heard of him and ask what he wants. Ashton explains he invited them to his mansion to become his mistresses, but the woman immediately refuses, causing surprise. Ashton scolds them, calling them nothing but citizens of a poor kingdom capable only of producing metal. He warns them about refusing, questioning if they think they can control the hero. The woman reflects that blaming the country for poverty is unfair and wishes she could demonstrate the sharpness of her blade. But she remains silent. Ashton challenges their stubbornness as the group stands firm. Ashton loudly proclaims that a country's leaders must repay their debts and that commoners must do all they can to repay theirs. The woman asks if he plans to lend money to Princess Lucia, noting that if she repays quickly, there would be no issues. Ashton mocks uneducated commoners and reveals they will use their rights to have Princess Lucia pay 100 million gold coins in value to the Recap ducal house. The woman questions if he intends to charge an outrageous interest rate, highlighting the harsh terms. Ashton declares that the members of the hero community will be collectively priced at 100 million gold coins. Demanding their understanding, the woman reacts with disbelief, questioning if such a sum can be prepared. Ashton laughs off her concern. But the man beside her warns that simply returning the money later won't work. She realizes they are forcing Princess Lucia into a one-sided obligation to repay the debt through other means, not money itself. Ashton explains that a debt is essentially a right, allowing creditors to force debtors to accept their conditions. The man acknowledges that such rights can't be exercised without probable cause, which the woman finds strange. Ashton mocks the commoners, praising their cunning. Suddenly, guards arrive carrying crates of precious metals from a nearby warehouse, lamenting that people got in the way of taking more. The woman demands to know who the guards are, and the man beside her agrees. Ashton smugly states that the hero community will become part of his collection. As the metals and valuables are loaded onto a carriage, the woman is frustrated by their ruthless and irredeemable methods. Ashton reveals he is only in the country because it is convenient, holding the rights to the Grand or Vein of Kinsekai. The man asks if Ashton means to obstruct him, and Ashton coughs violently, clearly rattled by the implication. The man kneels in submission, trembling and growling in frustration as the young man questions why anyone would kneel to a commoner in public. The woman stands nearby, her sword drawn, watching coldly. The kneeling man angrily demands what is being done to Ashton-sama. Photographers swarm, snapping pictures despite the protests to stop, while the kneeling man is ordered to raise his head. The woman and the young man smirk, noting this incident will surely make the front page of tomorrow's newspaper and ensure the kneeling man's name is remembered. The kneeling man groans in pain. The woman commands the guards to leave the metal behind, but the kneeling man shouts for Ashton-sama to wait. The guards rush off with the carriage. The group watches the carriage disappear, and the woman urges the young man to chase after them. A nearby woman reminds the young man that the country holds the rights to the Grand or Vein of Kinsekai. The young man acknowledges this, and the woman explains that it is convenient since Princess Lucia's family reigns over the country. The young man wonders if it is Princess Lucia's family. The woman explains that deeper inside the Grand or Vein lies another dungeon, accessible only with a special key. She reveals that the Yatsushiro Key clan is a bloodline existing since the world's beginning, and Princess Lucia's Chaoston family is part of that bloodline. The young man admits he has never heard of the Yatsushiro Key clan before, and the woman smiles, saying that is natural. The young man explains that the clan rules a territory deep inside the Grand or Vein of Kinsekai, where a dungeon must exist. The woman acknowledges this, understanding that avoiding unnecessary trouble for the princess is crucial. He adds that he confirmed this through a certain man's autobiography, and if Princess Lucia falls into debt and loses her reign, access to the Grand or Vein would be lost. The woman confirms this is exactly the concern. Outside, a carriage moves steadily through the streets. Inside the carriage, the large man clenches his fist in frustration, lamenting that his efforts only earned humiliation. He had planned to use debt to force Princess Lucia to repay him, turning the hero community into mere citizens, but setting a price tag on them backfired. He scorns foolish commoners who don't respect authority, but admits his subordinates aren't enough to subdue the heroes in the treasure capital Lapis. His focus shifts to the Chaoston Palace as the true target. Guards at the palace gates are startled by the arrival of a group. One demands to know who they are. The large man steps forward, introducing himself as Ashton Recap, Prime Minister of the Diamante Kingdom from the Recap ducal family. The guards react with outrage, warning that if Ashton doesn't make way, there will be trouble. Ashton commands his men to proceed, signaling them with a finger gun gesture. The guards react in shock as the armored soldiers forcefully push forward, breaking through the palace entrance. Princess Lucia and the woman inside react with wide-eyed surprise at the sudden intrusion. Armed men barge in, demanding Princess Lucia uphold a debt of 100 million gold coins. The princess and her companion react with shock and anger, demanding to know who these intruders are. One armored man scoffs dismissively as they advance. The large man reveals himself as Ashton Recap, Prime Minister of the Diamante Kingdom and head of the Recap ducal family. He questions if they refuse to listen, warning that accepting defeat would make their country a slave to the Diamante Kingdom. The princess angrily refuses, asserting her stance. Ashton dismisses her objections, claiming that a country reliant only on gathering metal is already enslaved. Ashton continues, explaining that this is the first time anyone has been forced into such a one-sided payment obligation, and no rules in the World Council forbid it. The princess challenges him, questioning if he truly believes he can act as he pleases. Ashton coldly steps on a framed picture, signaling his impatience and intent to force compliance. The princess is suddenly threatened with swords at her throat, Stunned by the escalation, she asks if Ashton is serious, but he coldly declares he won't repeat himself, insisting this country is only fit to be a slave. Princess Lucia calls out to Idrika, acknowledging the country's history of being exploited by others. She fiercely warns that if anyone believes this will always be the case, they are mistaken. A knight scoffs, mocking her small staff and dismissing her words. Undeterred, she points her staff forward, declaring that they have another thing coming. The knight sighs, clearly frustrated. Inside a royal office, the hero leans casually against the wall, drawing nervous glances from the armored guards. The princess stands beside him, demanding why they have such a hostile atmosphere in a royal office. She insists that barbaric words and drawing swords could be seen as a declaration of war. Questioning why they can't understand that, the guards react with shock and confusion, recognizing the hero's presence and questioning why he and the princess are together. Ashton confronts the hero and princess, accusing them of stealing ores and explaining that they came because of the tense atmosphere in the palace. He asserts his absolute authority, warning them not to get carried away since they are commoners. The hero and princess stand firm, unshaken by his threats. Ashton boasts that with a single order, his soldiers could surround the entire treasure capital, emphasizing his might and authority. The hero counters, stating that true authority belongs only to those who protect what is right, not those who abandon it. He calls out those who label other countries as slaves or provoke wars as criminals, asserting that such people do not deserve authority. The hero orders Lanhea to take Princess Lucia and retreat, while the guards and Ashton shout to capture him as a criminal. The princess panics, asking what about her, but Lanhea swiftly carries her away. The hero observes the guards attacking without much resistance and realizes this is just retaliation. He prepares to fight back, delivering a powerful punch that breaks through the armor of one soldier. As the hero blocks and counters the guards' attacks, the princess watches anxiously. The hero continues to fight fiercely, throwing one soldier down with a heavy blow. Ashton, shocked and sweating, questions what just happened as the hero kneels calmly. Ashton mocks him, claiming the hero couldn't say anything even if he killed his subordinates. But the hero's clenched fist hints at a deeper realization dawning on Ashton. The hero reveals his secret technique. After striking his opponents, he heals their wounds so no visible injuries remain. Though they still feel the pain, a soldier panics, unable to believe such a trick, while another warns that even if he knocks them unconscious, there will be no proof. A furious man orders to kill the hero immediately, calling the technique stupid. The hero stands calmly as armored soldiers move to attack him, but he taunts them, saying it won't matter if someone from a slave country dies. The angry man demands they get rid of him right away. A woman notices something, and the hero suddenly strikes, knocking down two soldiers. The hero holds a soldier by the neck, apologizing that he can't let him vomit on the palace floor. He explains he designed it so the vomit won't go down the throat but slide back down later, making the soldier suffer. The man demands to know what the hero is, who replies he is just a golem master, not strong enough to need more than 3 soldiers to handle him. The furious man refuses to accept the situation, insisting they must have been fooled. The hero coldly warns that if words don't work, maybe his body will make them understand. The man is struck hard, flying back with a scream as the hero's fist connects. A man reluctantly admits he can't leave the hero here forever and suggests returning him through the Diamante Kingdom's embassy. Another insists they must write an official letter of protest. The hero reflects on how complicated international relations are, acknowledging their small country's limited power despite having weapons pointed at them. Over tea, a maid expresses disbelief that Horus defeated 3 soldiers so easily, while a young woman admits she still struggles to believe the hero charged the palace and treated them like slaves. The spiky-haired woman affirms this is as natural as breathing for their master. The hero, seated, glances at a newspaper headline about the Diamante Kingdom issuing an apology. The spiky-haired woman questions if Ashton has learned his lesson. Noting the article used a particular picture, the girl with buns nervously guesses Ashton will return. The maid explains that although violence against nobles is rare, it has happened in the Diamante Kingdom, and the usual response is retaliation. An older man angrily recounts how commoners inflicted pain and wounded nobles' pride, making forgiveness impossible. The maid and the young woman with buns debate whether the nobles are too narrow-minded. While the maid suggests people only grow by learning to forgive, not restrain themselves, the spiky-haired woman notes nobles quickly forget their pain and retaliate despite the risk of being struck back. The hero leans back, pondering how those who retaliate often end up suffering the same wounds again within days. The head of the Recap ducal family declares the hero has disrespected him and vows not to let her get away with it. He orders his soldiers to capture everyone involved and promises them a share if they succeed. Smiling cruelly, he plots to attack her while she sleeps, confident this will ensure victory despite her status as a hero. Suddenly, the soldiers are thrown aside as the Duke is caught off guard, shocked by an unexpected force. Reflecting on his many foolish encounters, he contemplates that perhaps it would have been better if the Demon King had actually invaded the capital. The woman, surrounded by a fiery aura, confronts the Duke, explaining that even after the Demon King's defeat, those under his control remain absolutely loyal, leaving only restraint or death as options. She coldly warns she doesn't care about right or wrong and threatens to crush anyone who stands in her way. Pressing her advantage, she leans in close and declares she will make an example out of him, leaving the Duke trembling in terror as he realizes the gravity of his situation. The woman commands the Duke to hurry and disappear, pushing him back with a forceful gesture. She coldly offers to let him leave with all his limbs intact. The Duke, shaken and sweating, contemplates the severity of the situation. He mutters that he should call for an urgent World Council meeting. The woman turns away, walking back toward the building, telling him to look forward to it as the Duke collapses to the ground among fallen soldiers, overwhelmed and defeated. A messenger urgently informs the king that ActionToon, head of the Recap ducal family, has declared to Princess Lucia that the Dragonstone Kingdom is merely a slave to theirs. Ashton then ordered his private army to surround Ruster Report's base. Despite this, the hero's pressure led to their defeat. The king listens silently as the messenger adds they have also received a letter from the hero. The king hesitates, reluctant to read the letter marked confidential. While a woman beside him notes that reading it isn't optional, the king nervously accepts the letter, and as he reads, his expression shifts. The messenger remarks that the hero has a more discerning eye than they initially thought. The king reflects that he expected the princess to demand he take responsibility for Ashton's actions, but instead, she sent a letter calling for a special World Council meeting. The princess plans to host an audience and summon everyone who has a problem with the hero, intending to confront them all at once. The king is visibly shocked by this revelation. In the council chamber, nobles discuss the upcoming World Council meeting, noting the princess likely wants as many countries as possible to attend. They recall many expected a higher status individual to defeat the Demon King, but those people failed to act. One noble points out that results, not effort, matter in subjugating the Demon King. Another questions whether those who truly tried were outnumbered by those who didn't even attempt. The king sighs, acknowledging the truth in their words. The letter reveals the hero's statement. She doesn't care whose principles are right. A man reflects on how open-minded the princess is, admitting he doesn't want to believe a 17-year-old girl is more mature than himself. He acknowledges that people only truly grow when they learn forgiveness. The king recalls the World Council's origins, formed after a huge incident where religious leaders took over most rulerships. Because of this, no religious figures are invited to the meeting, as the council was created with the idea that humans have become independent from God. The man supposes the real purpose of the meeting is to show the nobility what kind of person the hero truly is. Even confined to their mansion, the dukes and counts of the kingdom still cause problems. The princess intends to make the blood from the divine blood adventure tremble in fear. As expected of a hero, the hero explains the divine blood adventure refers to the religious nations, bloodline nations, and adventurers, illustrating how much power gods, bloodlines, and adventurers hold. Sociologists say if a human belongs anywhere, it's within this divine blood adventure. The king admits the upcoming audience will be chaotic. The man asks if the hero's master will attend, and the king believes he will, as his disciples' achievements are being taken lightly. The man reasons that as their master, the hero's master wouldn't avoid showing his face. The hero himself thinks he will attend but hesitates. The king questions if it's really possible for someone to lose faith in the world, noting how easy it is to tell by looking at the current state of affairs. The man agrees, saying there are people who firmly believe the strong must protect the weak. He admits he can't deny that belief but reflects that the hero's master's powers aren't meant just to protect. If the hero has already given up on everything, the Chaos and Dragonstone Kingdom would be safe, and others wouldn't care about their lands. If deemed unnecessary, the crowd voices shameless complaints about the Commoner's Lodge, accusing the man of having authority and power to protect others at the space allotted in the castle. The man is asked if he could have the resolve to protect these people no matter what. He hesitates, struck by the weight of the question. Another voice suggests adding to that burden, pointing out that even if protection is given, gratitude will never be heard. The man reacts with surprise, realizing the harsh truth. The man reflects that rewarding achievements is merely an assessment, and there is never enough gratitude for the hero who defeated the Demon King. He insists that unless the belief that the hero saved the world is deeply engraved in everyone's unconscious minds, the value of the world saved will only diminish over time. The sprawling castle and town stand under a cloudy sky, symbolizing the fading appreciation. The man and an older figure acknowledge the gravity of the upcoming meeting, noting the hero's call for everyone with grievances against the hero to attend. The best outcome would be for no one to show up, But the man finds that impossible. The older figure laments the cheapness of the world they live in. Resolute, the man vows to do something to raise the world's value, declaring himself the leader of the greatest country. A determined woman addresses the assembly, accusing Ashton-re-Quotenides of the transgressions they face. She reveals her shock upon learning he is the prime minister of the Diamante Kingdom. The crowd reacts tensely as she demands anyone with rebuttals to speak now, asserting control over the situation with unwavering authority. Voices rise in accusation, declaring the crowd mere commoners who naturally serve the nobility. They challenge the hero's pride in subjugating the Demon King, demanding he use his power to forge closer ties with the nobility. Doubts swirl over how a mere Golem master could defeat the Demon King through training alone. The hero is accused of forcing debt onto the people while claiming to have saved the world, with calls for punishment and recognition only coming from offering all wealth earned. From the Demon King's subjugation to the World Council. The crowd insists the hero should be wed to the crown prince of the Diamante Kingdom, the world's greatest country, and criticizes his move to a small nation like the Chaos and Dragonstone Kingdom. They emphasize leaders must forge alliances with major nations' princes and accuse the hero's master of ignorance about the world's future. The assembly demands the hero share his techniques and knowledge for the world's sake, but a commanding voice silences the outburst. The woman at the center lashes out, calling the crowd selfish for labeling their country slaves and for invading their mansion to capture them. She recounts the Re-Quotenides' ducal family's transgressions and demands any rebuttals. Her clenched fist signals defiance, as she declares the World Council has no intention of apologizing for what has happened. She reveals the power she wields was granted by her master, enabling her to subjugate the Demon King. She challenges the crowd, questioning what they have achieved in comparison. She asserts they have no right to oppose those who have power, yet they dare defy their way of life and demand the world become theirs. The woman with long hair and a blindfolded gaze addresses the crowd, calling them ignorant for their focus on bloodlines, and begins to speak with authority. Suddenly, the massive doors creak open behind her. She turns sharply, eyes wide with shock, demanding to know who has appeared. A man in regal robes steps through, asking if she can hold on to her faith in the world a little longer. The man reveals himself as Barzile Diamante, greeting the woman as Hero Lanhea and noting it's been a while since the ceremony. She responds coldly that the council for the rulers will come later and that this place is for those who doubt him, dismissing his presence as irrelevant. Barzile counters, saying he's also here to file a complaint, though he doesn't agree with everyone's opinions present. He insists he's only here to speak his mind, prompting the woman's intense gaze to narrow as she tells him to go ahead. He formally thanks Hero Lanhea, the members of Ruster Report, and her master Horus for subjugating the Demon King and saving the world, expressing his gratitude sincerely from the bottom of his heart. The woman recalls the previous World Council where permanent members and rulers rewarded the hero community for their efforts, but she insists they have forgotten the most important thing. Gratitude. The man acknowledges this, affirming that gratitude is indeed what matters, causing shock among the council members. She admits she has a question and wonders why this acknowledgement comes now after all this time. The man responds that he is not petty and can recognize personal growth, then agrees she has every right to ask. He admits they have looked down on the hero title and committed many disrespectful acts, making it easy to lose faith when no proof is visible. He promises to show her a possibility. The man focuses, explaining that the pressure she uses is a truly fearsome ability. He demonstrates, conjuring a powerful aura around himself, asking if it goes something like this. Suddenly, several council members collapse, overwhelmed by the invisible force. The woman reacts quickly, forming a hand seal and unleashing a swift, powerful strike toward the man, who narrowly dodges the attack. The king laughs heartily, admitting he thought winning without proper training was impossible. Yet he lost easily. He reflects on the undeniable truths of their country that forced him to act against his nature, though the woman watching finds his behavior disappointing and unexpected. The woman states she wants to meet Horus, the king's master, and apologizes to him. A man in a suit steps forward, acknowledging he cannot hide anymore since she has already spoken. The king recognizes him as Horus. Horus apologizes deeply for making the king work in the castle without any reward. The king is humbled and asks him to raise his head, expressing gratitude for a gift that made his years of service worthwhile. Horus explains he genuinely liked the bonus item given with the antenna. The king accepts that if Horus prefers the Dragonstone Kingdom, they hold no debt between them. Horus says he has abandoned thoughts of returning and will strengthen the kingdom through his own efforts. The king asks Horus to demonstrate his pressure, addressing him as the hero's master. The king suggests understanding things through action instead of words, implying it would be easier. The young man questions what he means, but then admits he read the book and agrees to proceed. The king commands, "Come!" As they stand in a vast, grand hall, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. The king, still recovering, admits surprise that the young man remains standing and acknowledges even he is astonished. The woman beside the king reflects on how this world allows an ignorant, foolish, and incompetent man to become king, addressing the young man as "O hero." The king speaks of the world the young man saved, saying it holds great potential and possibility. He asks the woman to hold onto her faith in this world just a little longer, emphasizing the blood in their bodies still carries that potential. The woman listens silently, contemplating his words. The woman admits her defeat and confesses she once thought it would be fine to give up on this world. The king counters that she was wrong and that the young man has proven her wrong here and now. He explains that while the title of hero is given after great achievements, a ruler is a distinct existence in itself. The woman solemnly vows never to forget the gratitude for defeating the demon king. The king, adjusting his fur collar, contemplates which dungeon to imprison the nobles who have overstepped their bounds. A man nervously asks if the documents should be sent, and others eagerly agree to send them to the castle. Behind closed doors, nobles angrily protest their punishment, claiming their contributions and status should exempt them. One declares himself a duke and demands respect, while others insist they will never allow imprisonment. A voice asks if anyone knows communication magic, and a figure steps forward affirming they do. An order is issued to send the sky spirit dragon guy Gigant to the Diamante Kingdom's capital. The summoning stone is revealed to be underground in Duke Recotenite's mansion. The plan is to summon the dragon to seize control of the capital, sacrificing its citizens. A conspirator chuckles, explaining this is to guide the king back to the right path. In a council room, men discuss the failure of small-scale experiments ordered by the Chaos and Dragonstone Kingdom. They decide to unleash the dragon's full power to ensure success. Suddenly, armored soldiers burst in, announcing they have intercepted communication magic and accuse the conspirators of wanting to become international criminals, shocking the gathered nobles. The king erupts in frustration, roaring about the repeated foolish attempts, while his attendant urges him to calm down. The king snaps back, reminding that the meeting just ended and the topic is the sky spirit dragon guy Gigant. A shadowed figure explains that a dwarven swordmaster once slew the dragon, bringing prosperity to his hometown. The king leans forward, asking if Horus should make a move. A knock sounds at the door. The king grants permission to admit the visitors. A soldier opens the door, announcing the arrival of hero Lanhea and her master Horus. The king asks if Horus is heading to the capital, and Horus confirms, saying he has a request. The king turns to listen as Horus prepares to speak. Horus requests to borrow the Diamante Kingdom's underground antenna. The king notes Horus normally wouldn't ask permission first and inquires if a golem will be used, which Horus confirms. The king explains the bureaucracy involved in relinquishing control of such a large antenna, including paperwork and transport time. Horus reveals his familiarity with the rules from working at the castle for a long time. The king acknowledges Horus' knowledge with a thoughtful expression. The king understands why Horus wants to borrow the antenna and offers it freely, telling him to use it as much as needed. Horus apologizes for his sweaty hand. Shaken by recent events, the king assures him, expressing confidence and entrusting the capital's fate to Horus. Horus accepts the responsibility with determination. The young man declines teleportation magic, saying he'll go by himself since the documents will take time. The king asks if the woman isn't going with him, and she explains she expected to watch her master's heroic figure, but sees fighting very differently than he does, making her presence less useful as a reference. A ritual begins as hands hover over a glowing crystal atop a pedestal surrounded by cloaked statues. A beam of light shoots upward from the crystal, piercing the sky above the town. Suddenly, a massive dragon appears overhead, its fierce eyes and open maw drawing shocked cries from the townspeople below who ask what it is. The massive dragon looms over the town, its enormous wings spreading wide as terrified townsfolk shout to stop dawdling and run. A soldier warns that the ominous light from the dragon looks dangerous. A warrior clad in armor grips his sword, preparing for battle as the dragon's fierce roar fills the air. The dragon unleashes a powerful breath attack, sending a blazing beam toward the ground. People scramble for cover, shielding themselves from the deadly blast, while the armored warrior stands firm, ready to confront the threat. The dragon continues its menacing roar, the warrior gripping his sword tightly in frustration. He reflects on the absence of higher-ranked heroes, noting that many have already fled and that the higher-ups are stuck in another country, unable to return quickly, despite the dire situation. He steels himself for the fight ahead. The warrior clenches his fist, lamenting that even in an emergency, no SS-rank heroes have been called in. Only an ordinary A rank was deemed sufficient. He shouts defiantly at the dragon, accusing it of looking down on humans, and commands it to get down here as he prepares to engage the beast. The dragon lunges forward with terrifying speed, its monstrous form far from final. The warrior, unfazed, smirks and admits this isn't a joke he can laugh at. The dragon's fierce eyes lock onto him, roaring with menace. Flying above the burning city, the warrior notes that everyone obeyed King Barzil's evacuation order, but the real obstacle is the deed of twilight holding the dragon back. He watches as the dragon continues its rampage, impressed by the one who managed to hold it off for an hour at the cost of an arm. The dragon commands the warrior to face it directly. The warrior readies a powerful weapon, acknowledging the arrival of the hero's master. He steadies himself, preparing for the confrontation as the dragon looms large and threatening. The warrior launches a devastating attack at the dragon, catching the attention of a shocked onlooker. The dragon is struck fiercely, and the hero's master finally reveals himself in full force, stepping into the battle with determination. The armored warrior suddenly reacts with surprise as someone calls out to him. He checks himself and notices no other injuries around, concluding only the deed of Twilight fighter is hurt. He removes a limiter and sprints at full speed. Admitting he's not feeling great either, the warrior sneaks through the streets as the massive Sky Spirit Dragon Guy Gigant roars nearby. He offers to warm up with the dragon for a bit. The warrior summons a blazing weapon and launches an attack. The dragon snarls and lunges aggressively, claws slashing toward him. The warrior narrowly dodges the dragon's strike and counters with a powerful punch. Shouting his attack, the dragon reels from the blow as the battle intensifies. The hero leaps into the air, launching a powerful strike at the bone golem. The golem roars as it crashes down, but the hero calmly explains he set it to stable mode, balancing its magic power but lowering its combat strength far below expectations. He reflects on the need to increase the gun-type golem's firepower by relying on the bone golem, while also boosting its calculation ability to improve manipulability. Floating thoughtfully, he decides leaving it on stable is best for now. Suddenly, the dragon unleashes a breath attack, which the hero narrowly dodges, muttering how unlucky the situation is. The hero analyzes that all breath attacks are infused with magic power and that magic naturally seeks stability. He imagines converting magic power into a breath attack, then transforming it into air, which is more stable, allowing him to counter with a single strike. He warns not to underestimate humans. Confident that only deep knowledge of magic reveals such truths, the dragon attacks again, but the hero notes the breath stability increased, preventing him from overriding it easily. The hero curses the troublesome power as he dodges the dragon's assault, admitting the creature likely can't understand his words. Still, he notes the dragon caught on that the punch is the key, then launches a counterattack while urging the dragon to calm down already. The hero lunges forward, driving a punch straight into the dragon's snout. Startling the beast, the dragon roars deafeningly, forcing the hero to cover his ears as the shockwave blasts outward. He narrowly dodges a sweeping tail strike, grimacing from the impact. Suddenly alert, he senses something unusual. The dragon lands heavily, its roar shaking the ground beneath them. The hero watches intently as the creature prepares for another attack. He braces himself, noting the tension in the dragon's stance. Floating calmly, he declares the moment is nearly ripe for his next move. The dragon suddenly vanishes and reappears instantly nearby, moving with blinding speed. The hero realizes it's not teleportation but rapid movement over a short distance. He tenses, readying himself as the dragon unleashes a barrage of fiery blasts. The hero narrowly evades the dragon's fiery assault, crashing into the ground with force. The dragon's eyes widen in surprise as the hero counters with a swift, powerful kick. The impact sends the dragon reeling, sparks flying as the battle intensifies. The hero shouts a fierce insult at the dragon, his fist clenched with determination. The dragon, caught mid-attack, reacts with surprise. The scene pulls back to reveal the vast, desolate landscape as the dragon hovers above a lone armored soldier who looks up in shock. The soldier sighs heavily, acknowledging the hero's tactic as a standard strategy to gain the upper hand rather than cowardice. The view shifts to a distant castle overlooking the town. The dragon unleashes a powerful breath attack, forcing the hero to dodge swiftly. The hero notes the dragon ranks only 4th or 5th in strength, accepting the challenge. The dragon snarls fiercely, steam rising from its nostrils as it prepares another assault. The hero, calm and focused, explains that his current form is unfinished but ideal for testing his abilities. He extends a glowing armored hand, readying himself for the next move. The hero reveals the codename of his power, Deus Ex Machina, God of Machines. He confidently declares that no matter the opponent's strength, the scenario guarantees his victory. As the dragon lunges, the hero braces for impact, fully prepared to face the battle ahead. The hero faces off against the massive bone golem, its terrifying roar echoing as he prepares his next move. He reflects on the power of the golem, explaining that its strength depends entirely on calculation power. A man appears, offering a glowing cube as a bonus, which the hero admits he didn't expect to work so well. He notes he must switch the cube. The bone golem lunges fiercely, but the hero activates multiple glowing mechanical arms, dodging and countering with precision. The battle intensifies as the hero maneuvers swiftly, evading the golem's attacks with calm focus. The hero admits he is still using the power before his magic fully stabilizes, but it's nearly at full strength. He decides there's no point in prolonging the fight and prepares to end it. The dragon roars defiantly, signaling a desperate final struggle. The hero contemplates the vast gap in power between them, acknowledging that if it were smaller, the outcome might have been different. He concludes that this is a dragon beyond what knowledge alone can control. The hero's eyes widen in shock as he unleashes a powerful attack, shouting Taurus 3, while swinging his weapon with fierce determination. The dragon roars and lunges forward, but the hero's strike hits true, sending the beast crashing back with a massive explosion. The dragon staggers, its body trembling from the impact. The hero surveys the aftermath, noticing no gold coins or ingots have appeared from the destruction. He sighs, acknowledging the fight is far from over, and prepares himself for the final round. The dragon lets out a deafening roar, smoke billowing around it as the hero looks up, alert and ready, sensing the next phase of the battle approaching. Dragons swarm the sky, their fierce roars filling the air as they circle aggressively. The hero watches calmly, a faint sigh escaping him as he remarks on how lively the scene is. He shields his eyes from the smoke and chaos, reflecting on the surprising tactic of high-ranking dragons using sheer numbers against a single human. The dragons continue their relentless assault, dark shapes cutting through the clouds. The hero raises his armored hand, acknowledging the effort of the dragons and declaring his intention to return the favor. With a confident gesture, he summons a powerful force as the ground trembles beneath him. Standing resolute, he commands his summoned giant iron golem to action, naming it Orchestrion, Barrage Iron Man. A determined smile crosses his face as he prepares to confront the overwhelming dragon threat head-on. The iron golem's fists slam down relentlessly, firing powerful bursts that explode against the dragons. The barrage rocks the beasts, forcing one to recoil in shock as the assault continues without pause. The golem pivots, launching a massive strike that sends a dragon crashing backward with a roar. The hero watches calmly, commanding the golem as it moves with precision. The hero explains that Orchestrion's barrage uses magic bullets, requiring no reloading or recoil management. It can calculate precise shooting routes, making it deadly efficient. He orders the golem to switch to paralyze mode, noting the dragons don't drop gold when defeated. The hero clarifies that the summoned monsters act independently but only trigger effects if their main body is defeated. He shrugs off the complexity as the golem's paralyzing barrage continues, striking dragons midair and sending them crashing down. The hero stands firm as a massive dragon lunges at him, but he declares that such an attack won't work. He explains that when using the numbers strategy, nearly all the main body's resources funnel into summoning, controlling the minions in real time. The hero notices no more dragons are being created and asks if he's finally reached his limit. The dragon acknowledges this, noting the hero stopped wasting magic on summoning and is now focusing all power on his main body. The dragon roars defiantly. The hero commands, insisting the dragon's approach won't work. He clarifies he doesn't hate the dragon but will use it to achieve his goal. With determination, the hero launches a powerful strike, summoning a fierce scorpion creature to attack the dragon. A distant plume of smoke rises into the sky, signaling the dragon's defeat. A man in armor, holding a telescope, admits he can't believe what he witnessed, especially the immense magic power used beyond just the iron puppets. He reflects on the overwhelming force involved. The man then sips from a cup, pondering that this must be the hero's master. The chapter opens with a heavy set of chained hands, introducing a dragon famed for destroying several great nations. A soldier orders a crowd to move on, dismissing their disbelief that the House of Recapnides could be defeated so easily. A man is kicked down, gritting his teeth in frustration and swearing he will never accept this outcome. A regal figure questions the crowd, asking if they've lost faith in the social class system. He reminds them that the commoner they despised was the one who defeated the dragon and left behind a large sum of gold for repairs. The crowd reacts in shock and disbelief, murmuring about the vast amount of money and the lack of casualties from the incident. The regal figure sternly declares that planning to seize the capital with monsters is a grave crime. He announces that the sentence for those involved is consignment to the prison dungeon. Panic erupts as the crowd protests, with one man begging not to be sent there. the king offers to enlighten them about the prison dungeon. An explanation unfolds. In the natural world, monsters are part of the ecosystem and normally drop coins and items when defeated. Inside dungeons, monsters appear as a core mechanic, but the prison dungeon has a special mechanic of its own. Amidst chaos, men brawl over credit for a victory, while one demands another go first, asserting his noble title and ordering obedience. Rewards from defeating monsters or treasure chests vanish instantly, emerging from a hole near the dungeon's entrance, full of energy. The king explains this prevents using dropped items to escape or counterattack. He insists their actions aim to guide him wisely. The crowd angrily accuses the king of enjoying their suffering, but the king claims showing the proper path is justice. A nobleman declares that a wise king grants nobles eternal luxury, asserting they are the legitimate rulers by inheriting the king's chosen blood. Akin to a god, he demands extraordinary rewards for their labor ruling the people, justifying their privilege and power. The king and his advisor listen as the nobleman insists enjoying eternal luxury is justice, and the king's duty is to provide it. The advisor scoffs at the noble's madness for unleashing monsters on the capital. The nobleman blames the king for forgetting this duty. The nobles claim their superior power comes from chosen blood and that punishing them led to unleashing monsters as a show of strength. The king sighs, acknowledging that power is measured by death tolls, and that great wealth naturally forms under him, the king who deserves high rewards for governance. A man with a regal fur collar concedes the point made by the nobles, acknowledging mankind's history of war and massacre, and how heroes are those who kill the most, yet he sharply calls them fools. He grants their point but warns them sternly. The man condemns the nobles for mocking the founding principles of the World Council, reminding them they've forgotten something more important than nobility. Shocked, the nobles question the existence of this principle, but he declares their ignorance and shouts that they must protect their people to the very end, even without praying to a god. He explains that protecting the people means shielding them not only from monster attacks but also from starvation, disease, and internal conflict. The people must be protected from anything that shortens their natural lifespan. He fiercely rebukes the nobles for daring to sacrifice their own people merely to demonstrate power. The man reveals the other founding principle. Humans must never name themselves gods but grow endlessly as humans. The nobles are stunned and fearful. He accuses them of insulting the founders of the World Council and shames them for calling themselves nobles after such disrespect, demanding they know their shame. The armored soldier commands the guards to throw the prisoners into the prison dungeon called Pandemonium, sentencing them to life imprisonment. The prisoners plead and curse, but the soldier orders silence. A man with a fur cloak reflects bitterly that if things had been different, he might have acted otherwise, but now he must accept the harsh lesson. A maid appears, extinguishing a torch as she announces they will borrow the room. The young man and the duke look on as she explains the dungeon's walls repair themselves instantly and the boss rooms are spacious. The duke raises her arms in excitement, while the young man acknowledges the dungeon's suitability as a training ground, though he feels sorry for its original master. The duke launches herself forward with a powerful strike. Catching the young man's attention, she attacks swiftly, but the young man watches carefully as she fights. The duke continues her assault, but suddenly she stops, shocked that she cannot break through the dungeon walls. The young man looks on with concern as she struggles against the impenetrable barrier. The young man suddenly grabs the duke by the collar, lifting her off the ground as she cries out in shock and pain. She collapses to the floor, clutching her side, struggling to breathe as her sword lies discarded nearby. The maid gasps in horror as a flaming sword appears, thrown by the young man, piercing the wall behind her. The maid chokes, unable to defend herself. The young man gestures with his armored hand, recalling the thrown sword spinning through the air. He readies his own sword, swinging it down with force. The duke, still on the ground, admits he overdid it but notes her ability to still stand shows growth. The duke grimaces, struggling to breathe as she wipes sweat from her brow. The young man turns to the maid. Noting Tiras still looks weak and unable to manage, Tiras coughs violently, lying on the floor wrapped in the maid's arms, while the young man and maid exchange worried glances. The young man admits he's still no match for his master, who casually claims to have hammered combat techniques into all 6 of the executives. The master reflects on not being able to lose to girls a decade younger. While the 2 girls note he seems lost in thought, he recalls the sky spirit dragon guy Gigant, explaining that subjugating it would have taken them 2 months, and he's curious about the weapon that overwhelmed it, though he can't grasp its full power. The master reveals his weapon is only about 8% complete but calls it his masterpiece. The younger girl asks if it will be more than 10 times stronger when finished, surprised by the scale. The maid questions what he's preparing for, while the master is distracted until the maid calls out to him, snapping him back to attention. 2 women, Ellie and Lommel, arrive and are warmly greeted. The master comments on how long it took them to meet up, and Lommel asks Tiras if she has anything to eat. Tiras offers to provide snacks, prompting the master's curious glance as a table is prepared. The master marvels at the delicious-looking snacks and asks if they were made beforehand and stored in an item box. Lamal explains she linked a storage golem and a sweetsmaker golem into a subspace to manage supplies. Ellie deduces that Lamal was making weapons in various places due to the shortage of combat personnel in regions hardest hit by the Demon Lord's invasion. Lamal confirms they had no choice but to improve the quality of weapons under those circumstances. Ellie explains she was handling debt-related matters, revealing that in the worst-hit regions they provided magical tools at exceptional prices and enormous financial aid. Lamal notes this isn't charity, as many countries can't supply what they want. Ellie confirms they put less damaged regions into debt instead. The master notices many adventurers moving around, having seen shared carriages on the way. She reports that only the Dragonstone and Diamante kingdoms are debt-free among World Council nations. Both have many dungeons, so money-making spots aren't scarce. She explains the Adventurers Guild keeps neutrality, but adventurers are still affected by national affairs. If a nation owes debt, it tries to extract money wherever possible. Tightening control on adventurers, the master wonders if more adventurers mean harder dungeon training. But Ellie warns not many reach deeper levels and they should be concerned. She warns that many adventurers overestimate their abilities. The master is surprised, and she reminds them that they, commoners turned adventurers, defeated the Demon Lord. Lamal adds the kingdom grants priority use of ores and gems to adventurers, making weapon purchases easier. Ellie notes the country has almost no immigration restrictions, even allowing arrogant adventurers in, the master size, acknowledging the kingdom's development due to or use and past adventurer influx. She mentions rumors of executives from the adventurers' headquarters making a move. Though it might be a joke, the master notes the term court adventurer has started appearing. Ellie recalls a country was destroyed 100 years ago by such strategies. Calling it the worst immigrant invasion for adventurers, the master asks if the headquarters intends to destroy this country, but Ellie admits she doesn't know details and stresses the need for vigilance. The mate agrees. He sighs deeply, overwhelmed by how suddenly things have become chaotic for him. The two women watch quietly as he reflects that an adventurer is someone who cherishes their ideals and strives to improve daily. He insists that this is all an adventurer needs to be, something sacred. One woman asks what he will do now, reminding him of his policy. He answers that he will make an example of them and round them all up in one fell swoop. The other woman agrees, saying they must carefully observe the root of the problem. The group sits around a table, the man leaning back in frustration. Lamenting the situation they now face, the blonde woman questions what their enemies are planning. Alone, he quietly pleads, "Please," asking to be taught how to use a sword, his hand reaching out as if desperate for guidance. A young woman arrives, calling out to Horus. She excitedly mentions hearing that his steel puppet was rampaging all over the capital. But he corrects her, saying it was the dragon causing chaos. She doubts this, but he insists the golem was the one who removed the threat from the city. The girl contemplates, saying if the golem was truly the culprit, she'd become a criminal herself. Horus insists that just because he can erase all traces of his actions, it doesn't mean he acts recklessly. The girl calls him amazing, and he wonders if Lucia is present too. She asks what he's working on, pointing to a magic tools core. He confirms he's making a weapon. When asked if it's like a gun or cannon, he agrees, explaining it fires a beam that can penetrate steel armor. The girl reacts, calling it too dangerous. The girl asks how he acquired such skill, and he admits he learned it from books. She presses if his weapon inspiration also came from books. He explains he derived it from texts dating back 1,800 years to the Great Summoning Era, but replicating those refined techniques is uncertain. She reflects that with those ancient books, one could do almost anything. The girl excitedly finds a replica of the steel puppet that rampaged outside the capital, marveling at its appearance. Horus confirms it's a replica and warns it can actually fire bullets, urging caution. The girl gleefully pretends to shoot it, making playful gun sounds, while Horus and the woman nearby plead for her to stop before something happens. The girl nervously warns not to point the replica at her. Shocked that even as a replica it can turn a B-rank adventurer into a beehive, the boy questions Horus about it being just a replica. While the girl marvels that something so cute could be so deadly, Horus admits the golem might even be able to move on its own. Though he's unsure if it can smile, the girl gleefully claims the golem smiled just now, but the boy refuses to fall for that. The golem suddenly stomps forward, and the girl excitedly exclaims it's walking. The boy explains it's slow because it was designed as a stationary cannon, not for fast movement. The girl asks if it would have been better as a tank. But the boy says he doesn't need that since he's used to manipulating weapons connected to his body and has enough mobility. The girl asks if she can take the replica back with her, and the boy agrees since he doesn't really use it anymore. He explains it was for testing before finishing the real golem, which he now uses down in the Grand or Vein of Kinsekai. The girl happily names the replica Orchestrion, and the boy confirms the name. The scene shifts to a grand castle courtyard where a frustrated figure laments the never-ending problems. They complain that if adventurers come en masse, there won't be enough accommodations, and they can't handle preparing everything at once. A small golem waves its hand, reassuring that it will handle the buried construction applications. The girl notes the desk is already crowded with paperwork from Horace's place yesterday. She sighs, overwhelmed by the pile, wishing the golem had an automatic writing function. Meanwhile, a person at the desk is busy writing with a quill, surprised to hear someone wants to meet Princess Lucia. They mention Eri-san, the hero who united the merchants, is too busy right now. The door opens as a woman with long black hair and glasses enters. Greeting Princess Lucia warmly, Lucia beams and calls out to Eri-san, who responds with a smile and open arms. They embrace joyfully after a long time apart. The embrace continues with Lucia laughing and Eri-san smiling broadly. Nearby, the girl with twin buns watches, unimpressed and calling Eri-san a pervert for her reaction. Eri-san teases the girl, saying a 16-year-old no longer makes her heart race, causing the girl to growl in frustration. The girl then commands the golem to move, praising the decision to bring it along. Eri-san stands firm, calling the golem a cheap imitation while the girl looks on silently. Eri-san asks what brought the visitor today and presents a binder, explaining she heard about the construction problems and has prepared an item to help. The girl behind the desk listens intently, sweat forming on her brow as she faces the new offer. A woman presents data on a large-class magic tool, explaining it can create quality buildings 3 stories high in just half a day. The visitor reacts with shock. The girl with twin buns angrily demands if the woman is looking down on construction. Insisting the magic tool is urgently needed, the woman questions if Horace-san, known as a golem master, is involved. The girl clutches her cape nervously, doubting the magic tool's nature. The woman clarifies that golems and magic tools are similar, but the key difference lies in the user's control. Golems depend on their user's control, while magic tools do not. She explains a golem master replaces important performance parts of a magic tool with their own control, effectively turning it into a golem. The girl excitedly grasps this concept, realizing the magic tool is a modified golem. The woman continues, stating anyone can use the magic tool by inserting a coin, but it requires many coins to operate. She offers to leave behind some capital to cover costs. The girl is stunned to learn the amount equals 1/10 of the country's national budget. The woman insists it's a natural contribution as citizens of the country. The girl protests the amount is huge, but the others accept it gladly. The woman prepares to leave, emphasizing the magic tool is only a test and guarantees its safety. She admits they won't know its true effectiveness until used on-site and promises to contact the castle's architect beforehand. The girl is surprised the woman is leaving so soon, who replies she has already finished recharging. When asked what is being recharged, the woman with glasses hushes Lucia-sama, saying it's too early for her to know. Lucia wonders aloud how long it will take to find out. The girl with twin buns cheerfully guesses tomorrow or the day after, while the woman silently hopes she never understands such a perverted hobby. The scene shifts to a bustling smithing district in the Dragonstone Kingdom, alive with people and shops. The man notes that simply setting up shop here grants government money, and the woman confirms the kingdom's heavy investment in high-quality weapons. She explains the government's message. Focus on crafting the best weapons without worrying about livelihood. The woman asks if the man could make such weapons himself. He admits he can appraise them but is not a true blacksmith, his metalworking skill limited. He explains that the sword-type golem he uses is made from a special metal that average blacksmiths cannot work with, so he must do it himself. She acknowledges he only taught her the basics of weapon making, not the full craft, and protests when he refuses to sell her the weapon. Inside a shop, the man insists the weapon uses a special metal and demands a certificate proving mana manipulation ability before selling it. The shopkeeper warns that without such certification, the weapon could tear the user's body apart from inside. The man, confident as a B-rank adventurer, claims he can use mana manipulation. The shopkeeper angrily reminds him these are the country's rules, refusing to sell without proof. The man explains that most workshops avoid ores with troublesome properties, but this town's advanced processing techniques still handle some. The woman listens thoughtfully, noting that other adventurer guild branches lack authority to issue these certificates, causing confusion for outsiders. The man warns the younger adventurer that he'd feel bad if the weapon were misused by an ignorant fool. The younger man angrily shouts a fierce retort and charges forward with a clenched fist. The younger man lunges aggressively, but suddenly crashes into an unseen force and falls backward, blood spurting from his head. The woman apologizes quietly, revealing she caused the impact. The man calmly advises the younger one, named Lamel, that in such situations, it's better to paralyze opponents rather than push them from above. Lamel listens, embarrassed but attentive. The older man behind the counter praises the master's cleverness. Lamel groans in pain, clutching his head, confused by the sudden attack. The woman stands confidently, telling him to forgive her. The man praises the woman as a top-class lady, inviting her to join his guild and welcoming her skills as a blacksmith. She reacts with surprise, questioning his praise. He reveals he was the one who used intimidation on Lamel moments ago, which happened so fast she didn't notice. A chart of adventurer rankings is shown, explaining that B-rank adventurers are only at this level, while SS rank and hero ranks are special cases without descriptions. The man assures that the guild is amazing and promises to get Lamel in if he talks to them. The woman questions if the B in B rank stands for idiot. Shocking him, furious, the man yells that everyone is looking down on him and lunges forward with a punch. The woman calmly places her hand on his head, declaring it self-defense. She swiftly dodges his attack and counters with a punch of her own. The man spits out blood in surprise. Lamel comments that the materials from the fight seem worth extracting and asks how the sword looks. The woman teases the man for trying to hit a woman so easily, admitting she's fought mimics that look like humans. She then questions why he's here when his disciple got caught in a fight. The man reflects that everyone was ignoring him, so he thought to do something else. But he knew Lamel would be all right. Lamel asks if he feels lonely. The man reveals he's the greatest blacksmith of the hero community, surprising Lamel, who greets him warmly. The man asks if the other is the hero's master Horus. Noting his excitement, the woman confirms it with a smile. Suddenly, an older man bursts out from behind a door, surprising them both. The man explains he heard tales of defeating the dragon in the capital and mentions that taxes have lowered because of the help maintaining the country's facilities. The hero finds this rare and interesting, deciding to buy the item for research. The hero points to 2 swords and asks the shopkeeper their price. The shopkeeper is thrilled, overwhelmed that such a big shot is in his shop. He covers his face in disbelief, calling this his life's defining moment. The hero asks for the price, and the shopkeeper apologizes while placing the swords down, joking about testing them in action. The hero then steps forward, ready to leave. Holding the sword, the hero remarks this is a welcome surprise. The woman credits Idrika for steady improvements in magic tool development under the government. The hero admits he wasn't interested in civilian tools due to their limited resources. They walk away, discussing how first impressions often determine whether something is worth attention. The woman recalls the man from earlier disappeared, so she held back. She wonders if many like him exist nowadays. The hero agrees, pondering the rarity. The woman explains that although more people come as guild members, not enough to call them the majority, and since there isn't enough accommodation, they lent the construction magic tool to the Dragonstone country. The hero recalls they decided to lend it there, increasing the odds of encountering someone like the earlier man. The man from before was bragging about his guild, growing more arrogant now that he isn't alone. The hero and woman acknowledge this might be true, accepting the situation as they stand outside the shop. A man in armor questions why he was told to procure weapons, confused and frustrated that the shopkeeper refused to sell him any. He calls out urgently for Ivan-san, emphasizing how strange the situation is. The scene shifts to a somber man seated in a chair, covering his face with one hand, while a woman stands behind him with her arms crossed, silently observing. The woman explains she tried reasoning with the interfering customer but to no avail. The seated man contemplates the consequences, stating that if the SS-rank guild World Conquerors is truly being refused weapons, it amounts to picking a fight with all adventurers. The man in armor insists the shopkeeper is deliberately picking a fight and refuses to forgive the woman who mocked him despite his invitation to the guild. The seated man asks what's wrong, but the armored man brushes it off nervously. The seated man accuses the armored man of starting the fight and getting beaten up, calling it a bullseye. He warns to avoid picking fights with the wrong people and to always gather new information. The armored man admits the woman was a blacksmith and never denied it. The armored man laughs nervously, admitting he let his guard down against a top-class red-haired woman with a ponytail. The seated man confirms she's powerful enough to defeat a B-rank like the armored man. The armored man is shocked to realize he truly picked a fight with the wrong person. The armored man is stunned as the woman with goggles and a scarf reveals she's the chief of the hero community's workshop. The seated man questions why they think they're above others, citing the Ruster report defeating the Demon King. Ivan-san explains the Demon King's mind control skill caused their defeat, lamenting the lack of an item to protect their minds. The guild master asks Settle if he knows why he was allowed to join his personal squad. Settle looks down, exhaling deeply. The guild master jokes it's obviously because he's amazing, but quickly admits it's because Settle's family's trading company gave him a lot of money. Settle reacts with surprise. The guild master explains that normally his personal guard only accepts people who are at least A rank. The woman points out that Settle is the only person in the personal guard who is an S rank right now. Shocking him, she asks about the woman Settle got into a scuffle with, revealing the weapon she made was considered defective and sold to a trading company. The guild master needed a huge amount of money to buy it at an auction. so he bent the rules to let Settle kneels, overwhelmed. As the guild master admits, he was promoted to SS rank because of that sword. The guild master sternly warns Settle to understand his actual worth now, saying he doesn't care if Settle is ignorant or stupid, but if he causes trouble for the guild, he will be removed. Settle is shocked and stammers. The guild master tells him to cool his head for a while as Settle walks away, muttering about the guild master being an idiot. The woman asks Leona how many guild members have come to the city and are likely to join Settle's side. Estimating around 50, the guild master laughs, recalling how Settle bragged about his connections to other high-ranking guilds. Leona says he's likely referring to the thugs in each guild. They discuss using the hero community to get rid of them, mentioning stories about the hero capturing troublesome nobles. Leona advises against causing trouble for the hero community, warning that the devil might demand repayment of their debts if they do. She cannot recommend such a plan. Ivan-san explains that a single misstep could bring the entire guild to ruin. He instructs Leona to gather the executives and consider countermeasures. She acknowledges and leaves as the door shuts behind her. Meanwhile, a man reflects on the past decades spent in the same city with Horace. Realizing a reunion is unlikely, he also mentions coming here hoping to find Deed-san but seems to have missed him. A young man surveys a quest board filled mostly with or delivery tasks, expressing disappointment in the town's lack of variety. A woman asks if he has visited other branches before, and he admits he was an adventurer 10 years ago but had to stop to work at the castle. Suddenly, a cheerful voice announces their return as a door swings open. A lively girl named Nasha-chan is introduced as the youngest adventurer alive and the mascot of her branch, which she uses as her base of operations. Despite her small size, she works solo. She climbs over a counter while others explain that monsters don't appear in the shallow areas of the Grand or Vein of Kinsekai, but deeper spots gather more monsters due to the unusual depth of the ground. The girl happily shows off her gathered ore to a woman, who comments on the quantity and asks for confirmation of the contents. The young man thinks about Ellie, recalling when she asked to visit the Adventurers Guild together and wondering what happened. Ellie greets Nasha-chan warmly, teasing her as a plain old pervert and noting how hard she's been working lately. The young girl declares she must do her best and earn money because her father is really hurt. A woman smiles admiringly at her determination. Another person reminds her not to push herself too hard, mentioning she was bedridden due to a heart condition until recently. The girl excitedly flexes, insisting she is fully healed now. She resolves to become an amazing adventurer just like the hero, which brings tears of joy to the woman with glasses. The young man reflects on aspirations, realizing adventurers strive to become someone and get closer to their ideals every day. He acknowledges that while life sometimes forces compromises, true aspirations never disappear if kept pure. Suddenly, the woman with glasses grabs him for an eternal hug, causing him to sweat nervously. The girl watches, confused, as the woman asks what is wrong, then quickly denies anything is amiss. The woman tells the young man there is more to know, prompting his surprise. She points out the girl, saying she feels like she has seen her somewhere before. The young man suddenly recognizes the child as the one he saved during a fire, recalling the traumatic event vividly. The young man warmly tells the girl he is glad to see her doing well, and she responds cheerfully that she is doing very well. The woman with glasses greets the young man, noting he has awakened as well. As they walk, the young man grumbles about Settle-san being a slave driver, while the girl looks on, puzzled by the conversation. Two men exchange a tense, rebellious mood. One declares he plans to go wild in the brothel tonight, while the other admits a strong urge to break something. Their hands clap together sharply in agreement. Nearby, a stern man calls for attention, drawing the focus of several armored soldiers and a small girl watching from the side. A group of rough-looking men boldly announce they are from the S-rank guild Excalibur, stepping forward with confidence. Meanwhile, the woman with glasses, the young man, and the girl stand together, the woman declaring that from now on, this branch will follow the orders of the Settle Alliance. The girl questions the meaning of alliance, while the young man explains it means gathering people from various guilds and communities to form a team. The woman with glasses adds that the possibility depends on the rank of the guild their representative belongs to. She reveals that Settle is affiliated with the SS rank guild, World Conquerors, making him eligible. Suddenly, a loud voice demands to know what everyone is muttering about. The rebellious man roars his intent to crush anyone who talks back, claiming it's their line. The girl shouts back, challenging his selfishness. The young man clenches his fist, determined, thinking that even he can be like the hero. The surrounding men react with shock and confusion at the girl's boldness, while her eyes blaze with resolve. The girl fiercely declares she's not a brat but an adventurer too, determined to be like the hero one day. The rebellious man's eyes widen in shock as he calls her cocky. The girl's small figure trembles in fear as the man grumbles about how everyone only talks about the hero when mentioning adventurers lately, clearly annoyed. The bullies mock her relentlessly, claiming it's too early for girls like her and the hero to be so cocky. They belittle her victory over the Demon King, saying she wasn't even strong. The girl sobs uncontrollably as the crowd laughs at her, calling her lame and doubting she could ever become a hero. The woman with glasses suddenly clenches her teeth, her face shadowed with anger as the bullies continue their taunts. She demands an employee stop the girl, accusing her of threatening them. The girl stands silently, her expression calm but resolute, warning she will report them to their bosses if they don't stop. The woman erupts, shouting insults and striking the man with spiky hair, calling them pieces of trash and a dime a dozen. She proclaims herself a receptionist who deals with high-ranking adventurers daily, fiercely defending Nasha-chan's honor and punishing those who dare yell at her. A fierce woman warns the bullies to stop their prattling or she will crush them, then delivers a powerful punch that sends them flying out the door in terror. A bystander watches in shock as the thugs flee. The tension breaks as a young man reassures a crying girl that the scary men are gone and praises her bravery. A determined woman raises her fist, telling the bullies never to come back. The young man, still wary, mentions there's still a scary woman present and quietly asks another woman named Tracy to discuss something important. At a table, a woman comments on the young man's calmness during the fight and the strength of his punch, while another expresses surprise that he is the hero's master. The woman explains she was once an adventurer who teamed up with a blacksmith until having a child slowed her down. She recalls how her husband was excited about buying a sword from an amazing person, which puzzled the young man. The woman with glasses sips tea, asking if the store was called Smith House Angel, while the young man reveals his husband's name is Angel. The young man admits he was just buying swords for Lammel's research. Noting how excited his husband was, the woman encourages him, saying if the hero's master bought the sword, bragging is natural. The woman with glasses interrupts to get to the main topic, the Settle Alliance and the branch's plans regarding it. The other woman senses a scheme brewing, admitting she has something planned, though only a little. The woman calmly sips her tea, agreeing to personally inform the branch chief. The woman with glasses presses for details, learning that the branch is busy with rumors about the Diamante Kingdom planning to instate court adventurers. These elite adventurers are meant to serve as role models by proving themselves and behaving properly. The young man contemplates the plan, noting these court adventurers would receive special privileges if they limit their activities to within the kingdom. 3 figures represent the factions involved. Weary adventurers seeking peace, a nation focusing on human growth without praying to a god, and a religious state maintaining itself through divine authority. The narrator reflects that forcibly merging these divergent groups would destroy the delicate balance, especially since both have operated very differently. The woman asks to leave the Settle Alliance issue to her, confident she can entrust the hero community with controlling any backlash. The woman with glasses agrees but urges caution regarding Nasha-chan, warning something might happen to her. The young man wishes he could watch over Nasha-chan constantly, but the woman with glasses remains pragmatic. The woman cheerfully bids farewell, asking to be informed if Angel acquires any strange or... The scene shifts to a quiet town at dusk, then to a shadowy figure smiling slyly while handling some documents, hinting at unseen schemes unfolding. A man praises Settle-sama, amazed by the Alliance's rapid growth. He envisions their organization becoming powerful enough to monopolize all the wealth in the treasure capital of Lapis. Settle-sama responds with a sinister laugh, accusing Alvaro of lacking ambition, shocking the man. Settle-sama declares that if they create an even bigger organization, controlling the Dragonstone Kingdom won't be an exaggeration. The man reacts in awe at the idea of ruling the entire kingdom. Settle-sama orders to quietly expand their operations behind the scenes. He envisions a future where even world conquerors who once looked down on him will bow before him. In a dimly lit room, a man seated behind a desk explains that their efforts to undermine the country aim to correct its wrongs. Another man questions this, surprised. The seated man acknowledges the country's faults but highlights its treasure capital, Lapis, as a source of rare ores and excellent weapons, alongside numerous dungeons. The conversation shifts to guild rules. All ore from dungeons must be handed over to the guild. Access to the middle and lower dungeon layers requires permission, which trustworthy adventurers can obtain. However, blacksmiths and merchants with few connections struggle to gain footholds due to the need to find adventurers with permission for every request, causing excessive demand. The man continues, revealing that soldiers of the Dragonstone Kingdom also enter dungeons to gain experience and gather ores. These ores are sent to a citizen-exclusive rare stone market, with only leftover ores reaching the common market. He questions the fairness of this monopoly and insists they must stop this inequality. The other man agrees enthusiastically, declaring that everyone should be allowed free dungeon access and that all ores inside should become their monopoly. They resolve to recruit more adventurers, merchants, and blacksmiths dissatisfied with the current state to continue their monopoly plan. A man declares his ambition to gather everyone and create a giant organization, proclaiming himself the new ruler of the treasure capital Lapis. Another man hears a knock and asks who it is, then tells them to come in. A heavily bandaged man bursts in, urgently asking Settle to listen. Settle reacts with surprise as the newcomer reveals himself as the leader of Excalibur. The bandaged man explains that when they announced plans to take control of the branch, they faced retaliation from women, whom he vows not to forgive. Settle angrily kicks a door, frustrated by the situation. The bandaged leader insists he is a member of an SS-rank guild and that an association with him at the top should easily take control of a mere branch. Settle questions why this is happening, while the other man explains the branch is now S-rank due to the previous leader. The bandaged leader demands Settle take revenge for them, who responds with shock. Settle affirms he will, calling their actions like throwing mud in his face. The three visitors smile confidently before leaving, while Settle hesitates, telling them to wait. Settle demands to know who they were fighting. The bandaged man reveals it was a little girl and a receptionist with dyed brown hair. Settle warns not to pick fights with the wrong people. The bandaged man scoffs at the idea of a little girl and receptionist being heroes, but insists he just needs a plan to corner them and win. He grins confidently, promising to handle everything. The scene shifts to the Diamante Kingdom, where a nobleman looks out a window, pondering the concept of court adventurers. A servant explains that many adventurers have flooded into the capital. Supporting such a system, the nobleman asks what the people of the capital think about this. A woman explains that many people oppose the system, intuitively rejecting the notion. A crowd protests, demanding recognition of court adventurers. The nobleman reflects that this is seen as aggression toward the nation by the Adventurers Association. He notes this era separates divine blood adventurers to maintain balance. The woman questions if court adventurers are truly elite adventurers officially recognized by the nation. The nobleman says that if so, they would have to be court-exclusive adventurers. He recalls that the country which created this system 100 years ago was destroyed within a few years, and doubts many people still know about that. The woman adds that those who support the system do not understand these facts, and according to rumors, it is impossible for an adventurer to work under a government as a neutral party while entering any country. The Adventurers Guild is explained as a neutral faction, forbidden from allying with any country. The problem preceding neutrality is the act of moving for the sake of another. The system of quests is recognized everywhere as a way to resolve dissatisfaction, and adventurers hold the right to accept these quests. When a quest takes a long time, some exclusivity contracts may form, binding an adventurer to a quest or country. It seems someone has instigated the adventurers, but the king admits he has no clue who planned this and reluctantly agrees to let the situation continue for now. The king notes that citizens' dissatisfaction grows daily, and a riot might be possible. They must decide once the opposing side reveals itself. The king mentions an antenna, and wonders if the advisor considered the situation after noticing his own beard hair. The advisor confirms this and acknowledges the timing as the quest news reaches the hero mansion. The concept of technique range is discussed. Since people know each technique's range, they can avoid attacks. However, the antenna item overturns this by creating an overwhelming range. If Horus can use it freely, it would drastically change the battlefield, as the hero contemplates with a confident smile. A man considers that whether people are good or evil, they might be destroyed before they even notice, making Horus's new weapon the perfect toy. He worries someone could be plotting at the treasure capital Lapis as many adventurers flock to the Dragonstone Kingdom. He asks what message to send the trading company there, deciding to tell them to retreat to the nearest town away from Lapis, noting stray bullets are scary and instructing to write that verbatim. The man reflects that as long as the divine blood adventurers remain apart, he can't pressure the adventurers too much, but sometimes a king must make an example. Outside, two women look up in awe, one exclaiming in surprise. They stand before a massive, towering structure, marveling at its huge size. One remarks it must have been difficult for the Diamante Kingdom soldiers to transport it in parts, with weight reduction magic applied. The other jokes about how the size is always impressive, despite hearing it often. The two women discuss how the structure had been left in pieces underground, and now that it's assembled, one wonders how much more can be done with it. The man says he can operate the entire capital single-handedly now. Two maids arrive carrying boxes, and the woman asks what the man plans to use the structure for. He thanks them as they prepare to unveil the contents of the boxes. A woman asks what the strange objects are, and another explains they are communication magic tools. She begins testing them carefully, warning not to shake them. The man remarks that communication devices are usually as large as entire buildings, but she has made these much smaller. The group watches in amazement at her skill. The maid Tiris examines one of the devices closely, prompting the man to ask what's wrong. She explains the technology inside seems like it could be made at any local workshop. and she was curious about its construction. The man reveals the main system for processing communications is stored in her room. Surprising the others, he holds a device about the size of a box, which shocks Tiras. The maid points out that the boards don't use magic power, and the man explains a panel golem generates magic power beneath the main cube. The woman with goggles asks if the panel golem is a monster-type golem, which the man confirms. Another woman notes his deep knowledge of monster golems is impressive. The woman with glasses explains magic power is generated inside the monster and sent to the main cube, enabling calls via the antenna. The woman with goggles excitedly says the device doesn't need the user's magic power or coins like other magic tools, suggesting it could be used for advertising. The man warns not to break the prototypes, as only about 100 were made. The woman proposes using them as emergency wallets, but the man says to just call someone instead. He adds that breaking the master's sword means no coins are received, but defeating the panel golem inside the devices can earn coins. She explains how to start the device, telling Lanhea to enter her assigned number so it calls that exact device. Lanhea confirms her number is XX9, but when she tries, no response comes. The woman instructs that when the incoming call light is on, you press a button. Lanhea acknowledges and decides to move to another spot, while the woman watches her with a skeptical expression. Suddenly, Lanhea is startled by a loud shout from the woman, who laughs at her reaction. The man warns that if the call isn't ended, it will stay connected. The woman gleefully wants to see Langea's shocked face again. While the man wonders how far the device can reach, Lanhea and the man agree it can probably reach anywhere in Lapis, though the man admits he doesn't know how the antenna processes the message. The man asks the woman if she wants testers to figure out the device's range. She agrees and offers to distribute the devices. He hopes testers can clearly describe their experience using them. He plans to start with Lucia and Nasha-chan, aiming to talk to children anytime, day or night. The man warns not to use the devices for fetishes, which annoys the woman as the others cheer behind her. The woman happily shows off the device, excited she can talk anytime. Another woman explains magic power can't enter or exit dungeons, so contacting someone inside requires special communication magic, which takes training. The woman marvels at the device's capabilities, while the other notes mages must fine-tune and create communication magic specifically for long distances, emphasizing the difficulty involved. The woman explains that these high-value magic tools rarely appear, not even in dungeons, and they don't require magic power to use. She notes that while anyone can use them, even the World Council's headquarters had strict measures to control their use. The woman jokes that even the Golem Master can't make laws himself, and she eagerly awaits the commercial release of the first device. Another woman adds that laws will still be necessary to regulate the communication infrastructure. A hand reaches out to pick up one of the devices. A man inspects the small communication magic tool with suspicion, confirming it is indeed a communication device. A refined man explains that the hero's master created 100 of these and testers were gathered to try them out. The man reveals he had his subordinates buy some from the testers, and they only have 3 now, so nobody would notice if a few disappeared. A young woman enters the room and informs President Settle that he has received several letters. He lazily asks if any are important. She nervously reveals one is from the association's headquarters. The man demands to see it, his expression turning serious. After reading the letter, the man tells the woman she can leave, but she insists on staying. She asks him to come to her room tonight, implying an important matter. The man hesitates, but the refined man standing nearby reminds him it's obvious what must be done. The woman looks determined as the scene ends. A man sneers, reminding a young woman that the medical expenses for her heavily injured father are being paid by him. She nervously asks for forgiveness, but he dismisses apologies and demands she prove her sincerity tonight. The man in the white suit watches as the young man bows his head and leaves the room. Alone, the man praises Settle-sama, calling both the woman and her father fools. The young woman tearfully explains that the injury was caused by a common trap meant to strengthen monsters, not to kill. The man confirms she was responsible and harshly judges her as relying only on her looks without brains or smarts. The man in the white suit reveals the letter from headquarters came through his backer in the association, showing Settle-sama already has information about the magic tool. A shadowed figure explains that Settle-sama can use the communication magic tool at headquarters due to his executive privileges but wants a more portable version. The man in the white suit agrees to give one of the 3 devices to Pastel-sama. Settle-sama relaxes, confident tonight will be interesting and that his evaluation will rise. Meanwhile, a woman with long black hair picks up a high-rank potion from a shelf. The woman with glasses is asked if she is going into a dungeon, but she replies the matter is personal. She vows to protect the peace of all the cute girls in town, challenging the other woman who accuses her of usually disturbing the peace. The woman with glasses stands firm, ready to defend the town in her own way. The woman with long black hair insists they must use Settle to lure Pastel, explaining her plan to let him loose for now. The blonde woman confirms that Settle is the leader of the recent band of nuisances. The woman with glasses suddenly clenches her fist, her eyes wild with determination as she declares she will crush all their hopes and wishes. A small mechanical device whirs, producing copies of a drawing on paper. A girl marvels at the invention, calling it a copier, amazed by its ability to replicate images endlessly with just paper and ink. She explains that while similar methods like letterpress printing exist, this new machine's speed is unmatched. A man instructs them to test the device at the palace, setting the stage for its trial. The girl eagerly opens the device, curious about its inner workings, while the man warns her not to dismantle it. Another character excitedly shows the copied drawings to the girl, who reacts with surprise and slight nervousness. She studies the copies carefully, trying to understand the machine's output. The man examines the freshly printed paper, noting its high quality and that the ink has dried quickly. The girl reveals she prepared her own pen and paper. Dissatisfied with the town's supplies, she demonstrates the smoothness of the pen on the new paper, impressing everyone. The man comments on the craftsmanship, surprised that a Golem master could create such a device. They discuss the name ball pen, referencing an ancient language. The man reflects quietly, admitting the device eased past stresses, recalling how difficult it was for someone working in the castle before. The girl invites him to visit any time, assuring support. The man acknowledges the device is still a prototype and asks to be informed of any issues. The scene closes with the device and its copies laid out, symbolizing new possibilities ahead. He promises to bring his next invention over but warns that the palace isn't a personal testing ground. The two women behind him exchange amused smiles, marveling at how exciting his inventions always are, even joking that it's bad for her heart. Outside, he contemplates his next destination while observing armored guards and townsfolk eating nearby. Realizing he's hungry, he decides to get something to eat himself. Watching a group struggling to move a cart stuck in place, he calls out to them. Noting the magic tool is also stuck, the men express frustration, unable to understand why it won't move. Approaching the men, he questions what they're doing to his cart while holding a sandwich. One man laughs, denying he was giving it away for free, and offers him a weapon instead. The man reacts with a deadpan expression as the weapon is tossed to him. He looks down at the few coins in his hand, questioning if that's all there is. Standing in a doorway, he calls out to two rough-looking men. Identifying them as adventurers, the men boast loudly that they're from the S-rank guild Excalibur, and insist it's in their best interest to sell their goods to him. He smirks, telling them they probably think he's a newbie from a trading company, but the men admit that a deal with an S-rank guild sounds good. Even if it might not be true, one of the men demands the goods immediately, preparing to strike as a lesson for stalling. The man lunges forward with a fierce punch, but the leader remains calm. Staring down the attack, the leader mocks them, calling out Excalibur, and noting they aren't what they used to be. The men and a bystander watch in surprise as the leader steps forward. Suddenly, a woman jumps in, attacking the men with a shout of "Why you?" The men are immobilized, unable to move as the leader calmly states that just because they weren't on the battlefield doesn't mean they're weak. He finds it amusing that they don't realize they've been cast aside, indifferent to their sense of right and wrong. He confronts the men, accusing them of lacking any true ideals and suggesting they've long forgotten what it means to be adventurers. His piercing gaze declares they aren't worthy of the title. The men exchange uneasy glances, shaken by his words. He sighs as the men collapse to the ground, groaning in pain. They scramble to understand who he is, fear creeping into their voices. He turns calmly, ignoring their confusion and questions, introducing himself as Horus, the hero's master. He mocks their fear and dismisses their attempt to challenge him. He tells them they're merely pawns of Pastel, their true master, leaving them stunned and speechless. On the phone, Horus scolds them for their arrogance, declaring S-rank guilds far more important and condemning their tyrannical behavior. He warns that although he may overlook this attempted robbery, he hasn't forgiven them, especially for calling themselves adventurers while acting like tyrants. He declares their ideals as adventurers are the furthest from what they should be. The men angrily shout for him to shut up, but knights arrive, announcing the executives of Excalibur are under arrest for attempting to rob the hero's master. The men are stunned and speechless. The captured men panic, begging for forgiveness and promising to reflect on their actions. While one wonders where the knights came from, calmly, the hero's master warns them to be careful with their words and actions now that communication devices are in use. He orders the knights to take them away immediately. A knight apologizes, explaining that the Settle Alliance has been causing trouble recently. He acknowledges the importance of adventurers to the town's economy but notes that international law requires a complaint to be filed for victims to exist. The hero's master listens thoughtfully. The hero's master reflects on a past era when high-ranking guild leaders were arrested, causing immense economic damage, and suggests finding a balance instead. The knight admits he's heard this many times, but is glad the hero's master was the victim this time. As the hero's master leaves, the knight asks to discuss another matter with him. A knight asks if the Adventurers Guild branches might implement the court adventurer system. The hero replies he's heard about it. The knight explains the Diamante Kingdom likely won't adopt it, but the local branch already plans to make Settle a court adventurer of this country. The hero clarifies if that means Settle, and the knight confirms, calling them troublemakers of the Settle Alliance. The hero contemplates the branch's plans and thanks the knight for the information, who politely declines thanks. The hero mutters about the branch. Then the scene shifts outside to a building where a man mutters angrily, calling someone a damn brat. Inside, the shirtless man impatiently waits, complaining about how long a woman is making him wait. He pounds on the door, shouting that he's way too slow. Suddenly, an older man bursts in, startling him and shouting that it's Alvaro, addressing him as Settle-sama. The two men cough violently inside the room. The shirtless man demands to know what the other wants, but the older man gasps that the woman has run away. The shirtless man angrily questions if she treasured herself so much she abandoned her own father, shouting at the accusation. A few days later, the scene shifts to a building where a young girl excitedly calls out "One-ichan" to a woman in glasses. The girl rushes forward carrying a large sack, startling the woman, who recognizes her as Nasha. Nasha throws her arms around the woman in a joyful reunion, exclaiming it's been a while. The woman worries about Nasha running so fast given her heart disease, but Nasha cheerfully insists she's cured for some reason. Nearby, a long-haired woman watches them with a small smile, while others react to the reunion. Inside, the woman in glasses reminds the man present that he also treated Nasha's illness when he treated her father's burns. The man is puzzled by a statue-like figure thanking him on behalf of the god of hugging little girls. The woman explains they are here to pitch air purifiers, but jokes that just having the sisters around purifies the air enough. The man realizes the woman in glasses is Nasha's older sister. The older sister explains that when their father was gravely injured, she started working as guild staff for World Conquerors. She treated their father herself, spilling a high-ranking potion on him in the process. The man and others react to her crude but effective treatment, with the man calling her the best. The older sister adds that she was about to become Nasha's victim but didn't because Settle was paying for their father's treatment, making her subordinate to Settle. A man with wavy light hair surveys the guild branch's interior, commenting on its shabby state but dismissing it with a casual "well, whatever." He introduces himself as an executive from the main headquarters, here to carry out Pastel's orders. He boldly declares that everyone in this guild branch is now under the command of the Settle Alliance. A woman in a uniform rushes forward, shocked and angry, demanding to know how he dares to barge in. The man demonstrates his power by blocking a magical attack with ease, criticizing the magic as shabby. He offers the woman the honor of telling him her name after her failed attack, while she and another person watch in surprise, questioning if this is truly the strength of the main headquarters troops. The man reveals his name as Horus and claims to be the hero's master, expecting them to understand the significance. He recalls the hero's feat of defeating Guy Gigant despite not being an adventurer. Horus demands they register as an adventurer and become his subordinate, promising a nicer uniform than the others wear. The man declares he has no intention of becoming an adventurer again and warns that no one can defy him. He points out that the so-called hero community is really an adventurer community, making everyone subordinate to him as an executive of the main headquarters. He accuses them of ignoring their duty to ease the people's worries and using their power selfishly. He challenges the group, asking if they don't find that selfish. The gathered adventurers exchange uneasy looks. The man questions their attitude, explaining that the Adventurers Guild was established for travelers who wield power free from state or religious authority. He reminds the executive that adventurers are inherently travelers, venturing into the unknown to protect their freedom. He scolds them for forgetting how to be free, calling adventurers mere cogs in society and dismissing stories of the past. He notes the world's population is around 2 billion, but adventurers only number about 200,000. The headquarters oversees these cogs, claiming the world has improved, but he insists adventurers have no right to take the world for granted. The man confronts the executive, accusing him of mocking the Adventurers Guild despite being the master of the hero community. He admits he likes adventurers but hates the headquarters because of people like him. He insists adventurers exist to find freedom and dismisses the executive's sense of right and wrong. As the executive tries to retort, the man warns him not to get carried away, reminding him he is neither an adventurer nor a noble, but just a normal person. The man questions if the other is truly a normal person, calling him an interesting guy. He grabs the man's collar, accusing him of being untouchable because he's part of the headquarters. The man, trembling, retorts in shock as the other claims to understand how people like him think. The man, still shaken, is told he'll be let off with just a punch for now. The other warns it won't leave marks, only pain. As the man protests, the punch is delivered swiftly. The punch lands solidly, sending the man flying backward through a door. The attacker warns him not to get carried away and reminds him that he's staying in this town. Outside, a crowd cheers the man's decisive action while two men watch nervously. A woman named Eri comforts two children, refusing to let them witness the ugly reality of adulthood. The man questions Eri's actions, and she reflects on the absurdity of the situation. She notes that the man is the one the Dragonstone Kingdom and Diamante are considering as a court adventurer. The man silently calls the whole situation an absolute farce. A man bursts into the room, demanding to know what happened with the court adventurer project. Another man named Settle listens as the first explains that members of the S-rank guild Excalibur were arrested for trying to use Horus items, which has severely slowed their momentum. Despite this, they are still gathering like-minded adventurers who share their ideals. The first man narrows his eyes and growls, recognizing the presence of a certain man again. The second man nervously asks if the hero's master did something to Settle as well. Settle insists that fellow adventurers should overlook minor crimes here and there. The first man interrupts, emphasizing that since the hero community defeated the Demon Lord, the Adventurers Guild has a chance to take over the world. He declares that he can't let this opportunity slip away. His eyes harden as he vows that if this succeeds, his name will be etched in history as the one who took the very first step. He points out that the Diamante Kingdom and Chaoston Dragonstone Kingdom will be proof of his achievements. In a different setting, someone pours tea and comments that Pastel has had it rough too. Noting Ellie didn't want to meet him either, Pastel and two others discuss how the hero's master tried to make Pastel his subordinate after discovering his identity. They reveal that the hero's master was trying to bring this branch under the Settle Alliance's control. One woman remarks on how decisive they are, while another reflects that adventurers are being groomed to be rulers of the world. A third woman laments that it's a joke no one can even laugh at. Pastel solemnly states that the man in question has been the main culprit behind many major incidents in the past. The others recall how the headquarters tried to hide this, but the information spread too quickly. They mention a big incident from 4 years ago where the man underestimated the Demon Lord, causing major casualties. Pastel admits that just remembering it makes his stomach turn. The group reflects on how, while everyone else has had their achievements recognized by the world, this man is desperate to increase the Adventurers Guild's authority. 4 years ago, during a Demon Lord investigation assembly, word spread rapidly about the Demon Lord's power to control men. Despite this, the headquarters believed their magic items granting abnormal status resistance would protect them. They underestimated the Demon Lord just as they had the current hero, confident they made their move. The guild mobilized every craftsman and magic tool engineer to mass-produce these resistance magic items. They hired high-ranking adventurers willing to do anything for enough money. Armed with these items, they attacked a large city guarding the Demon Lord's front lines, bypassing 1,000 A-rank adventurers. All this was because they knew the Demon Lord herself was present. A fierce battle erupts as adventurers charge forward, eager to claim hero status by defeating the Demon Lord. One warrior declares it a competition, while another reminds them it's troubling to be forgotten. They rush into the fray, swords drawn, determined to prove themselves. Inside a fortress, a group of knights and adventurers shout for the Demon Lord to come out. One urges calm, reminding everyone they have magic items for protection. The tension rises as they prepare to confront the Demon Lord directly, vowing to take her head. The Demon Lord descends ominously before a group of knights, her presence overwhelming. As she appears, a sword clatters to the ground, signaling the shift in power. The crowd of adventurers falls under her spell, their eyes turning to hearts as they become enthralled. The Demon Lord smirks, fully in control of everyone around her. The narration reveals that the mastermind behind the entire operation was the 19-year-old Pastel. Despite their success, the world remains unaware of the grim truth. Many countries wanted only good news amid suffering. The adventurers involved in the failed mission were captured and transformed into monsters using the Demon Lord's potent drugs, and the heroes subjugated them, hiding the terrible reality from the public. In a quiet room, Pastel and two companions discuss the mysterious magic item blueprint. One wonders about its origin, noting its incredible effectiveness, even against the Demon King, and its capacity for mass production. Pastel admits curiosity about this strange phenomenon, emphasizing how unusual it all is. When active in the capital, the topic of making magic items with abnormal status resistance in large quantities suddenly arose. They heard talented people were gathered, but the source of the blueprint remained unclear. One asks why no one interfered with Pastel when such rumors spread. And the answer is that the results exceeded expectations. They thought the magic items would be used in more tragic scenes, so suspicion was low. The group recalls that everyone fought on the front lines many times before. The demon lord can ensnare men without killing them, but she cannot use women, so women are quickly discarded. This explains why tragic scenes are filled with corpses. They reason the magic items were meant to help those going to dangerous places stay sane. The maid confirms this was what they believe the items were for. However, the man reflects that recently he has been thinking someone may have deliberately leaked the information to cause a huge incident. The maid agrees this theory seems plausible. The woman with goggles reveals the magic items given out were all shaped like medals or talismans, which creeps her out. The man concludes that Pastel's failure wasn't just underestimating the demon lord. Regardless, the hero community will likely get involved somehow. The group wonders what Pastel plans to do next as they continue their discussion. When registering as an adventurer, one must put a hold on their citizenship to remain neutral. However, a few are exceptions because despite being adventurers, they are also citizens of the Dragonstone Kingdom. These exceptions are the closest to achieving Pastel's goal, making them inevitable topics of discussion. The man reflects quietly, realizing they will have to see these people again. A few days later, Eri watches through a telescope from a window. She prepares to go out, and a cheerful woman greets her. Noting her energy, Eri leaves as the man and the woman exchange confused glances. The woman asks if Eri saw a cute girl somewhere, prompting the man to take the telescope from her. He wonders if the man they are watching has somehow joined Eri's side. The woman looks puzzled as the man tells her to have a look for herself. Outside, a man speaks loudly to a crowd gathered in front of the hero's mansion, causing a woman watching through the telescope to exclaim in surprise. The man and woman inside question why someone would treat the outside of a home like a public speaking spot. They acknowledge that speaking in front of the hero's mansion will attract attention, but wonder what the purpose is. A man loudly declares that neither the divine nor the bloodline contributed to subjugating the demon king, and that only the hero community deserves credit. He condemns the hero for lacking status and owning just one mansion in a remote area, demanding the hero be granted a position befitting their contributions. The man argues it's natural for such a hero to be named a court adventurer, a role central to the nation. A crowd gathers in front of the hero's mansion. While a confident man smirks nearby, a voice hopes no one is convinced by the simplistic view of court adventurers as merely recognized by the country. Inside, a warrior and a woman discuss the need to clarify misunderstandings. The woman wishes she could warn others of the danger. They explain adventurers are technically migrants without a country, but if one works for a government, they're called a court adventurer. The woman questions what happens if an adventurer uncovers government secrets, highlighting a flaw in the system. The man agrees, noting it's hard for adventurers to oppose the guild, risking leaks to the government. A king's silhouette suggests spies could easily infiltrate, underscoring the system's vulnerabilities. Skills and know-how can be passed down, but adventurers lack a sense of belonging to any country, risking abandonment of dull or troublesome tasks. This flaw causes their work to decline in quality over time. A woman agrees, while a man admires how Pastel uses the concept of immigration strategically, seeing it as a way to invade nations through court adventurers. A man passionately declares that despite divisions by divine blood, the hero who saved the world transcends boundaries with justice. The hero reflects that those in power only need to ensure safety for society to progress. Citizens and adventurers alike voice complaints about or rights, emphasizing the priority given to the country's citizens. The man angrily proclaims they receive only leftovers from the oar's mind, demanding the hero become a court adventurer to secure rights and use resources as they see fit. His fervor rallies agreement from those around him. As the man insists adventurers and citizens should stand equal, another commands him to shut up. The crowd reacts with shock as a composed figure named Ivan San arrives, silencing the heated debate with his presence. A man on a crate greets Ivan San with a mocking tone, asking if anyone doubts his words. Ivan San remains silent, but the man presses, questioning if he has more than just qualms. A woman with long black hair and glasses steps forward, sharply accusing him of spouting nonsense. The woman stands confidently between Ivan San and the man on the crate, silencing the crowd. The man on the crate stammers in shock. Ivan San declares that Settle is expelled from the World Conquerors, making his decision official. The expelled man reacts with horror while Ivan San explains he doesn't care about the prestige of being a member, only that it doesn't cause him trouble. He permits the use of the group's power to control the unknown, but draws the line at personal trouble. The man on the crate bows his head in defeat as Ivan San's words hang heavy. Ivan San asserts that as long as the world follows the divine blood adventure, adventurers must remain adventurers. The Settle Alliance fundamentally rejects this, unable to accept that someone who achieved the greatest feats should be rewarded only with a mansion and citizenship in a small country. The expelled man grimaces in frustration while the crowd listens in stunned silence. He closes his eyes briefly, then nods in understanding, acknowledging the direction things are headed. The man with spiky hair and a scarf folds his arms, confirming that he now sees the plan clearly. A large mansion stands solemnly as the scene shifts, emphasizing the significance of the place. A woman with long hair and a man with dark spiky hair lean out a window, noting that Ivan has arrived at the mansion after a long absence. The hero who saved the world received only a mansion and citizenship in this country, a reward that the crowd finds insufficient. A man with light hair argues this will diminish the value of being a hero in the public eye. The dark-haired man and a woman with glasses silently consider this, while the light-haired man questions why such a statement is made now, drawing attention from the surrounding crowd. The conversation shifts to how the world still underestimates both the hero and the demon lord, focusing on the demon lord's terrifying special abilities. The crowd recalls how many challenged the hero, believing themselves stronger, which explains the endless conflicts. The dark-haired man acknowledges the prevalence of excuses to avoid action, while the woman with glasses quietly agrees. The light-haired man enthusiastically insists the world must recognize this truth, citing the king of the greatest nation speaking at the World Council. The dark-haired man notes the king expressed gratitude toward the hero, but the woman with glasses challenges the light-haired man, asking if he has done the same. The light-haired man appears taken aback, while the crowd watches tensely. The dark-haired man firmly states he is sure the light-haired man has not shown such gratitude, emphasizing that the hero remains merely a tool for control. He warns that lowering oneself to someone like the light-haired man must feel foolish. The light-haired man demands unrelated topics be avoided, but the dark-haired man insists the issue is connected to the current chaos. The light-haired man's expression darkens as the crowd looks on, tension thickening the air. The dark-haired man suggests asking someone else about the hero community's feelings on the incident. The woman with glasses expresses doubts about establishing the court adventurer system, recalling that it existed 100 years ago and caused many countries to fall into ruin. A shocked man questions the claim that countries were ruined. The man with curly hair and another man panic, denying any knowledge of such events. The woman with glasses deduces that if even Pastel, an officer, is unaware, then the information must be deliberately concealed by someone of high rank. The dark-haired man explains that rather than being destroyed, these countries became puppets controlled by a certain executive at headquarters. The woman confirms that this is common knowledge among all members of the Ruster report, though outsiders wouldn't know without investigation. The curly-haired man reveals that the executives stripped the country of its resources for their own interests, losing 80% of the population to a stampede they should have been able to control. He angrily questions why he was left alone despite knowing the truth. The woman calmly explains they left him alone to prevent him from getting in over his head, using him as an example to catch others in one fell swoop. The dark-haired man states this is the hero's modus operandi, and the situation was allowed to escalate deliberately. The curly-haired man reacts in shock, realizing the scale of the manipulation. A man with disheveled light hair panics as his hands begin turning to stone, shouting that this is impossible and that he's supposed to be an overseer. A woman with long black hair and glasses observes calmly, noting the overseer role with a knowing expression. She confronts a stern man in a uniform, questioning why he stopped someone on the first day. The man stands confidently, arms crossed, while she explains that if he hadn't stopped Settle today, the speeches would have continued for days. The man declares he knows who taught them to act this way and has a message for that person, emphasizing that the person they both admire is different. The woman asks if he's an acquaintance of the master, and he confirms he and Horus teamed up before. He reflects that despite 10 years since their separation in the destroyed Wazuria kingdom, Horus hasn't changed. The man and woman stand among a crowd, the man crossing his arms in disbelief. The woman explains that opposition to court adventurers isn't limited to the hero but extends to someone who worked with the hero's master. The distressed overseer mutters that this is the worst, clutching his head. The woman sarcastically praises his effort, especially since the battle was doomed from the start. The overseer angrily lashes out, shouting at the adventurers for messing with him and asserting his authority. He clenches his fist, determined to act. The woman's eyes widen with intensity, her gaze sharp and unyielding as she prepares to respond. The woman, calm and resolute, tells the defeated man she understands his obsession and will make an example of him by using one of her powerful aces. She confidently walks through a crowd, leaving the man collapsed on the ground. Inside a room, a man with spiky hair nervously asks what to do next, overwhelmed by the situation. Another man angrily slams a chair, declaring his many achievements and executive status, demanding respect. The defeated man clutches his head, lamenting that after being expelled from the world conquerors, he's useless and can't rely on anyone anymore. A third man sternly warns him there won't be a next time, though he will be kept around for now. The defeated man bows deeply, desperate. The man with spiky hair responds energetically to the command of the man with wavy hair, who reflects that progress in the kingdom should have been made by now, the wavy-haired man announces they will move to the Diamante kingdom. Suddenly, a messenger bursts in, urgently calling out to Pastel with a letter from headquarters. Pastel and the others examine the letter, which was sent using a magic tool and appears urgent. The wavy-haired man reacts with shock upon reading that he is being transferred to the Gendel Kingdom branch to do odd chores. The letter's contents leave him stunned as he processes the unexpected reassignment. The man with wavy hair reads aloud that the Gendel Kingdom is nearly invaded by the Demon Lord and only sustains itself through agriculture. He grimaces, shocked to learn the kingdom has only 100,000 people. He clenches a paper, furious at being transferred to such a poor country, questioning the reason behind it. A woman with long black hair and glasses, walking away, comments that Pastel must be panicking. A young man with goggles lounges on a couch, noting the Ruster report will say quit being adventurers. The woman in a maid outfit explains they only became adventurers for convenience during the Demon Lord's defeat and have no reason to cling to that status. The woman with glasses asks why Pastel was transferred instead of removed. She notes Pastel's strong fixation on his management role and how being forced to do odd chores in a small country must be humiliating. The young man chuckles, calling her horrible. The man with wavy hair screams in frustration, tearing the paper, cursing the heroes. He demands if they can seize control of the Adventurer Guild's people. He worries about the backlash if the hero leaves. Explaining the guild has overused the hero's name to boost its reputation and cannot afford to lose him. A man calls out to Pastel, startling him. Pastel collapses to the floor, shouting in despair about being cut off and the late reveal of a powerful negotiation card. He curses repeatedly, overwhelmed. A calm voice urges him to calm down, addressing him as Pastel Kuan, as he remains on the floor, shaken. A man with wavy hair, Sid, appears and addresses Pastel with a knowing smile. Remarking it's been about 4 years since they last met, Pastel and another man in a suit turn sharply toward Sid. Surprised by his presence, Sid casually calls out to Pastel, using a familiar honorific. Pastel questions who Sid is, and Sid explains they met during an operation 4 years ago. Sid reveals he provided the blueprint for the abnormal status resistance magic item. Despite Pastel's surprise at Sid knowing his name, Sid introduces himself as a representative of the workshop called Pharos Keyboard. Sid is asked what he's here for, and he confidently states he has prepared a hideout and an escape route for Pastel. Pastel and the man in the suit look outside as Sid gestures toward the view. Pastel asks for clarification about the hideout and escape route, showing concern as Sid watches from behind a curtain. Outside, armed figures have already surrounded the building. Moving swiftly, Sid watches calmly as Pastel panics, questioning if headquarters will ignore all his achievements. Sid mockingly reminds Pastel of a major failure from 4 years ago, implying that Pastel's current predicament is tied to that past event. Sid coldly reveals Pastel's debt, saying it will likely be forgiven if he is disposed of. Pastel panics, denying the debt, but Sid reminds him of his own words about amassing a fortune by defeating the Demon Lord. Pastel struggles to call it a debt despite the pressure. He explains the immense expenses for Pastel's operation, including procuring materials, supplies, and craftsmen, plus high-quality equipment for 1,000 A-rank adventurers. He admits posing as a headquarters executive to uncover Pastel's true debt, shocking Pastel with the figure, 100 million gold coins. He details the cost as covering preparations and fallout from Pastel's failure, totaling around 100 million gold coins. Pastel is stunned, and Sid mocks him for only having about 10,000 gold coins available, calling it 10,000 times less. Sid points out Pastel is essentially buying time for those who joined the operation. He laughs, listing lavish spending on brothels and restaurants to keep men focused on battle, blaming the overflowing number of adventurers who became heroes. He explains the hero community's neglect allowed adventurers' dissatisfaction to grow, causing damage to establishments that had to be compensated. Pastel, shocked, admits he did not know this. Because of the massive debt, headquarters borrowed 100 million gold coins, with several executives swallowing their pride to lower their heads for this favor. The main debtor's name was Pastel's, shocking him deeply. Sid tells Pastel he is demoted and sent to a small country's branch, warning that many will turn their blades against him now that he's no longer an executive. Sid advises that hiding is the best course of action, laughing as he predicts Pastel's downfall is greater than he imagines. Sid reveals he has prepared a secret escape route and hideout just for Pastel. When Pastel asks what Sid hopes to gain by helping him, Sid smiles and tells him to look forward to it. Pastel reluctantly agrees and demands Sid help him escape. He acknowledges Pastel's request with a confident smile, while others react with surprise. The narration explains that on that day, Pastel and Settle suddenly disappeared, effectively vanishing from the public eye. The person most responsible for advancing the court adventure system had vanished. Meanwhile, Guy Gigant and Eri discuss Pastel's situation, noting that even without his executive status, he can still move around 10,000 gold coins. They explain the Adventurers Guild manages over 200,000 adventurers, but only a select few executives control their interests and profits, including cuts from high-ranking adventurers. This concentration of influence makes the guild a powerful entity, with a budget comparable to a national treasury. An older king with a fur-lined cloak discusses the dangerous concentration of power held by a select few who control all interests, emphasizing the need for proper surveillance of the system. He confirms that Pastel is the mastermind behind the recent incident and caused the previous one. A younger man in formal attire asks the king if something is troubling him. The king hesitates, pondering the situation. The king expresses two doubts. First, about the incident itself and who provided the blueprints for the magic items used. He explains that producing magic items takes time, and that the core of these items was made from a rare metal that allows magic to pass through easily, correlating with their performance. The king confirms the need to find this rare metal. The king continues, noting that the items used in the incident were mainly metals and cards, implying extensive research was needed to manufacture them. The younger man questions who produced the blueprints. Given the strict material requirements, the king acknowledges understanding the concern as they both reflect on the complexity involved. The king voices his second doubt. The difficulty of Pastel's escape. He notes the proficiency of those involved is far beyond typical craftsmen, and the reward for capturing Pastel is enormous. 100 million gold coins. The younger man concludes that the person who helped Pastel escape is likely the same skilled craftsman behind the blueprints, seeking confirmation from the king, who responds with a thoughtful question mark. The older man chuckles, anticipating the younger man's thoughts, but quickly denies that Horus was involved, explaining that Horus wouldn't act that way. He describes the hero's modus operandi as setting an example and catching all enemies in one fell swoop, a strategy learned from Horus. Despite their small numbers, the heroes managed to defeat the demon lord's vast army by moving many people with a single order. The younger man agrees with this assessment. The older man contrasts the current craftsman's approach, who works differently by relying on individuals and assuming their eventual failure. The younger man is surprised, but the older man dismisses the importance of that detail. He admits having doubts but clarifies he never said he would get involved. The older man announces his plan to hold a demonstration, instructing to gather 500 people among adventurers and refugees in the castle's main hall. The younger man questions the demonstration, and the older man specifies gathering the 500 most arrogant immigrants. The younger man promptly agrees to fulfill the order. The older man turns to look out the window. Gazing out the window, the older man reflects that this plan should solve the immigration issue and recalls reading a letter that now seems relevant. The female hero energetically calls for a meeting, inviting anyone with complaints to come forward. The older man muses that he has been influenced by the same ideas of setting an example and in one fell swoop. The crowd murmurs in confusion, questioning why they were summoned for a meeting. Some grumble about the kingdom monopolizing too many dungeons and complain about the stingy fees charged for each use. A woman voices frustration that they are all victims of the demon lord as well. Behind a curtain, a man observes the gathering and reflects on the nobles' perspective. Noting their expectation for support from the World Council to recover, he acknowledges the ongoing demands directed at the nobles despite SS-rank adventurers, nobles, and knights sharing the same space. The man reveals that only one nation in the World Council is debt-free and can act freely, their own Diamante Kingdom. Outside, the man walks through the city, thinking about the kingdom's minimal losses in provisions and infrastructure. He and the king discuss the slight productivity drop since Horus's passing but agree the country is fortunate to have the hero's master working in the capital. The king nervously fiddles with his ring, and the man signals to begin the meeting. Inside the hall, the man walks toward the stage as the crowd settles. He notes how much the king has changed, now quick and precise with orders and researching late into the night. Thanks to these efforts, the kingdom's recovery is progressing smoothly. The king reflects on how much the hero has changed, noting his intuition is sharper than expected and his once lazy face is gone. Nobles who recognize his worth have started following him. Meanwhile, a man wonders if the people here can truly change as a crowd of frustrated men shout they are not free. A man commands silence with voice amplification magic, urging everyone to listen as the king prepares to speak. Nobles and knights shout demands for dungeon rights and accuse the king of looking down on them, pressing for support and restoration after the demon lord's subjugation. A stout noble demands money, supplies, and manpower to restore their nation's former glory, questioning if the greatest bloodline nation can truly lead without sufficient aid. The crowd erupts in agreement, while a man calmly acknowledges their concerns. The king addresses the crowd, acknowledging that some politicians have branded their country as the villain, and that many look down on the demon lord and the hero. He reassures the adventurers present, recognizing their concerns and preparing to speak to them directly. The king declares that many bloodline nations are in desperate need, Yet no action has been taken to support them despite laws meant to aid those suffering major damage. He acknowledges the adventurers' request for a court adventurer system to recognize their efforts, emphasizing his role as a king with a permanent seat in the World Council. The king admits affected countries have been pleading for restoration support, prompting loud cheers from the crowd demanding immediate aid. He solemnly considers their pleas, gripping his gauntlet as the tension rises, while an attendant watches in surprise. Suddenly, the king erupts with fury, shouting for the crowd to know shame. His explosive outburst sends shockwaves through the assembly, knocking many off their feet and silencing the room with his fierce reprimand. The king condemns the crowd for a grave misunderstanding, accusing many nobles and knights of fleeing their posts and breaking their promise to protect the people. He reminds them that the World Council was founded to be independent from divine influence and to safeguard the populace, demanding accountability for their actions. The king demands the crowd consider their own responsibilities, insisting that even those without the courage to wield a sword had duties to fulfill. He condemns them for hiding behind laws demanding aid while embarrassing themselves by shirking their roles and being misled by others. The commoners, shown distressed and ashamed, are reminded that their actions are disgraceful. He points out the many refugees struggling in the country, emphasizing that they have been doing all they can. Yet the crowd causes a fuss, pretending to represent the hero who defeated the demon lord. The king declares that only the people from Ruster Report and their master have earned his acknowledgement for that feat. Guy Gigant and a female companion stand silently, absorbing the harsh truth. The king struggles to catch his breath amid the pressure of his own words and the crowd's reaction. He reflects on how he still cannot match the hero's level, marveling at how a mere 17-year-old girl could release such overwhelming pressure. He wonders what hardships she must have endured, likely beyond the understanding of most. The narration reveals that although the demon lord's charm cannot be dispelled, many once believed it would fade after his defeat. The hero faces criticism for mercilessly dispatching those afflicted by the charm. A group of adventurers walks away from the scene. While townspeople watch anxiously, the heroine clenches her fist with determination, ready to face the challenges ahead. The narration reveals the hero's silence in the face of harsh criticism, showing she understood the pain behind those feelings. The Bloodline Nations and Adventurers' headquarters never protected the young girls subjected to appalling acts, leaving them vulnerable. The world itself forced these cruelties upon them. The king raises his hand, demanding endless gratitude for the girls' sacrifices and constant acknowledgement of their deeds. He reminds everyone that the hero and the other girls have been guided by their master. Then his tone sharpens, accusing the crowd of doing nothing while daring to claim equality with the hero, condemning their worthlessness. The king declares he will never recognize the court adventurers and will only offer minimal support to affected nations. He challenges them to change his mind by first learning to grow as humans, pounding his fist to emphasize his command. A courtier praises the king's speech, and the king orders the guards to expel everyone. He calmly acknowledges the plan to capture all the adventurers in one swift move, understanding the strategy as he sips from a goblet. The scene ends with an empty hallway and a quiet city street at dusk. A man at the bar remarks to Ivan that he already has a favorite shop in Dragonstone Kingdom. Ivan asks the master for a private room in the back, prompting the master to agree while questioning why. Ivan hints at having some good alcohol prepared, and the master laughs, noting Ivan hasn't changed in 10 years. Inside the private room, Ivan drinks from a glass, praising the quality as the best. He explains the drink is called Tears of the Azure Dragon, 400 years old, though he can't tell much difference from other drinks. Ivan's companion jokes that with how Ivan treats it, the drink might cry. Ivan admits his subordinates got it from somewhere, but he doesn't know where. The companion warns Ivan he's messing with his body too much, asking if his sense of taste is affected. Ivan replies he's self-aware and reveals his bones are already golemized and he's tinkered with his brain a bit. The companion is shocked, but Ivan smiles, saying he can't tell how much the wine and cheese are worth anymore. They laugh, recalling Ivan once had a good sense of value. Ivan explains that expensive wine and cheap cheese are meant to be eaten together, a tradition unchanged since the past. He asks how his companion, Horus, has been doing since they split at the Wazuria Kingdom. Horus replies that Ivan should already know he trained the girls who defeated the Demon Lord. With only 6 trained directly under him, Horus confirms about 100 were rescued and trained in total. The man explains he's been managing the guild called World Conquerors, mostly active in areas beyond the Demon Lord's influence. He notes no one in the mansion was unknown to him, likely because others only saw his associates as allies. He points out too many people were sent to the front lines, leaving other areas short on manpower. The Demon Lord's presence isn't the main issue. Normal monsters populate the region. If the other intervenes and resolves these problems, he'll reach SS rank. Before realizing it, the other man questions why a certain individual was involved, noting running a guild is tough even with rank increases. The first man admits he needed funds to buy one of a woman's failed pieces at auction. Explaining it was due to one of the other's disciples, Lamal, he reveals Settle, the son of a merchant, sneaked into the guild after he took money from Settle's father. The conversation shifts to why Settle and Pastel disappeared. The first man doesn't understand the reason, but suspects it relates to Pharaoh's keyboard. He adds that even if Settle got in through money, he'd be sacked for interfering with the Divine Blood adventure. The other agrees, noting there's a possibility those two were secretly disposed of, though they might just reappear. The first man asks Horus about his feelings on extremism, mentioning how it causes more derangement than the wine they drink. Horus admits he's received countless complaints while working in the capital. He acknowledges that despite the demon lord's subjugation, many problems remain. He doesn't claim full understanding of the world from his experience but recognizes ongoing issues. The ceremony to commemorate the hero's achievements at the World Conference only took place after 6 months had passed, as dealing with the aftermath consumed much time. Despite the knowledge of the demon lord's abilities, people still held the wrong idea. The hero's first request at the World Council was to grant every member the right to marry her, which likely caused many problems afterward. The hero's companions had grown weary from traveling the world with him and never considered receiving rewards or support. What remained in them was only the possibility to continue growing, their gratitude toward the hero being their sole motivation. The hero realizes the citizenship prepared for him was because fewer men remained in the country, making it possible for one man to have many wives. The other man explains most men were sent to the front lines, and though the heroes are strong, by the hero's side they are just ordinary girls. The hero admits he hates extremism. The hero reflects that if he is the only thing worth something to those girls, that too is extremism. The other man agrees and laughs, noting the dazzling possibility that the king has shown. The scene ends with the hero looking toward a radiant figure, contemplating the weight of these thoughts. The hero reflects on the world having a king like that, admitting it's a pretty good thing. The other man concedes he can't say it isn't. He reminds the hero they can't forget that the future they wanted was decided from that moment after all, as the ruined cityscape underscores the weight of their words. Both men exchange shocked looks before a desperate figure appears, bowing deeply on the ground. She pleads urgently, begging them to teach her the sword.